Kane is in the building.
What is up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of the Buffalo Blueprint. I got a great show for you tonight. I am joined by Rob at Stats on Fire of the Gold Standard 49ers podcast. We're going to break down the Sunday Night Football, Buffalo Bills, and the San Francisco 49ers matchup. And then I will do our weekly reverse power rankings, and then I'll let you know the games I will be watching before the Sunday Night Football game. First up, let me get some ads out of the way, and then we will start the show. I'd like to thank our show sponsor, Mackenzie Farms and Happy Holiday Tree Farms, for supporting the show. They'd like to share a message with you for this holiday season. Remember when we took pride in the things we built, the things we grew, when we put aside small differences to support one another? We can do it again. It's not as hard as you think. This Christmas, say no to fake trees. They're made of lead and plastic in sweatshops overseas. Choose a traditional, sustainable, real tree grown by American family farmers in every state. The best way to celebrate Christmas is with a real Christmas tree grown here in America. So this Christmas, don't fake it, go real. That way you'll have a really great Christmas. Sponsored by the growers of real Christmas trees at Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms. W Energy is our newest network sponsor. W Energy is an amazing energy drink that is made with clean ingredients to give you the energy boost you need with no crash. They also offer an electrolyte drink to keep you hydrated. Hit the link in the bio or go to w.gg and use the promo code DUE, D-U-E, and get 10% off your first purchase. All right. Rob, thank you so much for joining me. If you want to tell people a little bit about yourself, where they can find you, and what you've been up to.
Well, first of all, I just want to say for the record, I'm a real Christmas tree guy. Always have been, always will be. So just want to put that out there. Cover the 49ers. Have been covering the Niners for my own company, the Gold Standard Niners podcast, and also for SB Nation, probably for about half a decade now, it feels like anyway. We were credentialed to cover the Super Bowl last year when the Niners were lucky enough to get there. I also do fill-in work on ESPN Radio from time to time as well. So, yeah, kind of a little bit of everything.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time out to join us for this breakdown. As always, if anyone has any questions, comments, please post them, and we will get to them as we see them. Let's jump right into it. How about that? So the matchup Sunday Night Football, obviously, the game's going to be on NBC. The announcers are Mike Tirico on the play-by-play, Chris Collinsworth as the color commentator, and Melissa Stark on the sidelines. Bills are favored by 6.5. Last I checked, it might have moved a little bit to 6. The total is 43.5, and it's been moving between 43.5 and 44. Weather's going to be in the high 20s. Snow is about 50 to 60% chance, but less than half an inch during the game. So, yes, we're going to be getting a lot of snow before the game, but it should be mostly cleared out, and then I don't think it's going to be too crazy during the game. But for 49ers fans that aren't used to Buffalo, the weather can change very fast, and that forecast could change quickly. But right now it looks pretty good. Weather is supposed to be wind is supposed to be about 10 miles per hour with some gusts below 30 miles an hour, though. So how many snow games have the 49ers experienced lately? I know they travel some, Green Bay, stuff like that, but have they experienced any that lately?
Lately, I would say no. The one that comes to mind is 2021 playoff game in Green Bay, where it was freezing cold and the 49ers somehow won that game without scoring an offensive touchdown. That was probably the most recent one. So, yeah, now 3 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of turnover since then. So, especially with these injuries, we can go over some of that. How about we start with the 49ers injuries, and then we'll go into Bills injuries, and then we'll get into some storylines for the game.
Well,
So the 49ers, this list is doesn't even fit on the page.
it's depressing and pathetic. I mean, look at their starting guard is out. Their best pass rusher, Nick Bosa, is out. Their best run stopper, Jordan Elliott, is out. Their best cornerback, Diamador Lenore, is out. Their best offensive lineman, Trent Williams, is out. Drake Greenlaw has been out all year because he tore his Achilles in the Super Bowl. Charvarius Ward, was dealing with a horrible personal tragedy. He might play, but he hasn't played in a game in a month. So now you're talking about your third corner being really your freshest corner. And let me tell you, the third corner for the Niners is not that good. It's a long, long list. Their second best offensive lineman, Dominic Pooney's been banged up also. They are just the walking wounded. They got incredibly lucky last year with injuries. This year, they have not had that luck. And it's just one of many things that have gone wrong for the 49ers in 2024.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable to see an injury report like this. We've been dealing with a lot of injuries too, but I think you kind of get the blinders on and don't necessarily see other teams around the league and what they're dealing with. And then when you see an injury report like this, you're like, oh my gosh. But I want to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, our sheet was completely full as well. We're getting healthier. We'll go over that in a minute. But so, what about some of the questionable here? Like, is there anything that stands out as far as people probably playing, like Green or Givens or any of those players make an impact? Obviously Brock Purdy and the shoulder, we can get into that as well, but are there any of the other players that are impact players that are going to play or backups?
Well, Renardo Green was playing really well for the 49ers. He had a neck injury last week. They're questionable. The Niners are so sketchy when it comes to injuries. Perfect example. Fred Warner revealed this week he's been playing on a fractured ankle since week 4. And
I saw that. That's crazy.
He has not appeared on the injury report.
Yeah.
So their injury reporting,
and then they had the issue with Mason too earlier, right in the year, right?
Jordan
Mason. And CMC, yeah.
I mean, Brandon Allen started last week. He had a broken finger on his non-throwing hand. He wasn't on the injury report. They're really bad when it comes to this stuff. I think Green will play. Givens is questionable. He hasn't played. I don't know if he's played all season, to be honest with you. So that is a true questionable for him. I think Green's going to play. Brock Purdy's definitely going to play. They said he was 100% at practice. I don't know why he's questionable. He talked to the media yesterday. So he did the media session, which is always a good sign because they always want the starting quarterback to do that. So I expect Brock to play. He claims he can make all the throws, but that's the situation there.
That is crazy. Do you think there's any injury or any risk of re-injury for him or anything like that, or do you think it's more just a pain thing at this point? As long as he can throw comfortably enough, then he's good to go.
Well, here's the thing about this whole situation. It kind of stinks because we never found out what the injury was. It was always just called soreness. And they were asked, what is the nature of Brock Purdy's injury? And the response Kyle Shanahan gave was, quote, shoulder. So I don't know if he can re-injure it. I have no idea. I think it would be nuts of Brock Purdy to go back out on the field if he could re-injure or worsen that shoulder injury because he's trying to get a new contract after the year. And if you're him, you don't want to be coming off 2 potentially major injuries to your throwing arm in 3 years and try to get paid. So if it could get worse and he's willing to play, he's taking a huge risk. So hopefully, I don't know what the injury could have been, but hopefully it's a minor thing. He says he's 100% and we'll be able to tell pretty quick, I think, because Brock doesn't have the strongest arm to begin with. So if he's less than 100%, I think we'll be able to tell.
Yeah, especially in cold weather, and if there's some wind, you'll definitely know. So,
some wind. What do you know about that in Buffalo? Your quarterback could throw a football through a keyhole.
Yeah, we're blessed with that. I know, and some fans want to put a dome on the stadium, so and take that advantage away.
No,
so
never. This is awesome Sunday. What we could see with the lake effect snow, that is beautiful. We were watching Thursday with Browns and Steelers, so it's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yep. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to get that kind of snow, but there'll be definitely snow all around, right? The stadium's going to be covered. The sidelines, I'm sure, will be covered. But I'm sure there'll be lots of snowballs flying, so look for that. But I'm not sure we're gonna get a snow globe type game. But hey, you never know.
That's the only thing, honestly, that I have to look forward to in this game. Because I think that Bills fans, I think you're going to have a damn good Sunday night. I really do. And I try to be optimistic, but
yeah, yeah. We'll go into that. I definitely have some questions about that. We'll get into that here in a little bit. All right, we'll go over the Bills injury report real quick. As you can see, we're dealing with our own stuff as well, but we're on the tail end of that, coming off bye week, so a lot of guys are getting right. Um, let's see. Right now, the main things are Dalton Kincaid, our tight end, second year tight end. He's ruled out for the game. He's dealing with a knee injury. Dwayne Carter on here is listed as questionable. He's coming off of IR for a wrist injury. He was ruled out today, so he's not going to play either. He's missed the last 4 games and then the bye week as well, obviously, so he's not quite ready. I'm guessing that has more to do with the roster spot, because having to bring him back this week, they'd have to take someone off the roster, and I'm not sure they want to do that yet. So it's probably more of a luxury thing since most guys are healthy. Why not just keep him another week? We signed 2 veteran defensive linemen in Quentin Jefferson and Jordan Phillips, and they've been in the system before, and they've played the last week or two. So I'm sure it's about letting them play another week before deciding. Maybe they'll have an injury this week, and you won't have to worry about a roster spot for bringing Carter back. But that's my guess. It's more of a luxury thing to not have to bring him off of IR. Matt Milano is coming off of IR. He hasn't played yet this year. For 49ers fans that might not know, he's all pro caliber off-ball linebacker, phenomenal player. Hasn't really played in the last at least a year and a half. He went out, I think, week 5 last year with a pretty gruesome leg injury, broken legs, with some knee issues as well with that. He was coming back in training camp and then tore his bicep. And so, yeah, it's kind of been a blessing in disguise a little bit, we think, is he wasn't moving real great in practice in the preseason. And so this has given his legs some more time to build up strength and come back. And then in the practice clips we've seen, he's definitely moved a lot smoother. So I'm guessing maybe this might be a good thing that it helped him heal up better on the leg. And so I'm guessing he's going to play, obviously, this week, but I'm not sure it'll be full time. Last time he came back with an injury similar to this, I think it was a pec injury, and they played him like 30% of the snaps, a lot of third down packages and stuff like that, and then worked his way back over a couple games. So good for Bills fans down the stretch run. We haven't really seen him play too much with our middle linebacker, Terrell Bernard. They've played 4.5 games together in the past 2 years, so it'll be good to have those two together, much like Greenlaw and Warner together. These two are unbelievable in coverage, and they feed off each other and are really, really dynamic. So having them back is big for the Bills. Keon Coleman is questionable as well with a wrist injury. He's been limited all week. He missed our last game, and then obviously we're coming off the bye week, so they've had some rest with him. They didn't sign a wide receiver off the practice squad, so I'm guessing he's going to play, and he'll probably be limited as well with him. They'll probably take it easy, but he sounds like he's going to play. Some Bills fans had questions about one of the call-ups. We called up backup quarterback White off of the practice squad, and some people were asking about that, like Mike White, why is he coming off the practice squad? Why are they having 3 quarterbacks? And the Bills have done that in the past. A lot of it is just like a thank you or a pay thing, so he can have a game check. It might have been in his contract when they signed him from the Dolphins that they would call him up for a game or two. They're pretty healthy, as you can see, so it might be a luxury at this point to just be able to sign him to the active roster. I don't think it has anything to do with the status of Josh Allen or Mitch Trubisky. So, yeah, right. I hope not, but no, they've done this in the past, so I wouldn't worry too much about for Bills fans. And then the other player on here that was ruled out was Tylen Grable. He's our backup left tackle. He's been out for most of the year on IR, and it looks like the same thing, I'm guessing, for Dwayne Carter. They probably want to give him another week or two since they still have the practice window open. The roster's full right now, so why cut somebody? Just wait after this game and see how it goes. So that's kind of it for the Bills. They've had a couple guys dinged up here and there. A lot of wrist injuries this year. This has been the year of the wrist for the Bills. They've had maybe 5 or 6 wrist injuries. Amari Cooper has had the cast on. We'll see if that is off for this game. He played the game before the bye with the cast on, and it didn't seem to affect him too much. He had 2 nice catches down the field, but he's been dealing with a wrist injury. Same with Keon Coleman, Dwayne Carter, Josh Allen, even a little bit had a wrist. So it's been the year of the wrist for the Bills. But yeah, like I said, it looks like they're starting to get healthy, which is big for us coming off the bye and hopefully go on a little bit of a run here through the rest of the season. The Bills traditionally have been very good off the bye. They're 7-0 under Sean McDermott off the bye, and after the bye week, they are, I think it's like 17-2 or something like that. So very good team down the stretch run. How about we get into a couple San Francisco talking points? I have a couple questions for you as far as obviously you guys have been dealing with a lot of injuries, but I mean, doing research for this matchup and the metrics, the advanced metrics really like San Francisco as far as where you guys rank. And it blows my mind that it's a 6-loss team with the metrics that I'm seeing. So what has it been, injuries, or has it been, poor play by some people, mistakes? What could you chalk up to the season so far?
Yeah, welcome to my fresh hell. That is the frustrating thing. It's like, oh, everyone, they should be better. They should be better. The team is like, oh, we're a good team, but they're not. Okay. Like I'm tired of hearing about what this team should be, should have done, should be doing. They're not. Okay. They didn't win a Super Bowl. They should have more wins. They don't have more wins. They have not played a complete 4-quarter game this entire season. They have not put it together. They play complementary football. Unfortunately, it's all to complement the other team, right? Like they turn the ball over. They turn the ball over in their own territory frequently. They set up the other team with their turnovers for points. When they get turnovers themselves, they don't capitalize on them. Lately, I don't know why, they can't run the ball at all. Like not even a little bit. They can't run the ball, even with Christian McCaffrey back. And when they can't run the ball, their offense just sputters, because the worst part of this offense is the straight, plain old drop back game. And that's what they end up having to fall into, especially if they turn the ball over early and fall behind. And it snowballs on them quickly. Like that game against the Packers, they were in that game. In the second half of that game, the defense stopped Green Bay multiple times and gave the Niners the ball back with a chance to make it a 1-score game. And the Niners never did it. And eventually, it just snowballs and falls apart, and it gets away from him at the end.
Yeah, that's crazy to me. The other surprising thing was Purdy, the turnovers this year. That had been surprising. Is that because of anything specific, or is the luck kind of turned on him a little bit with some of the bounces? What could you attribute some of the turnovers to?
Stupid decisions mostly. I mean, there have been a couple, like those fluky, like ball goes off a receiver's hands and into the defender. So that happens to everybody though. But just some bad decisions, forcing things, really trying to force the issue is where Brock can get into trouble. Doing things above and beyond outside the moment that aren't called for, passing up a check down, trying to throw the ball further down the field into tighter coverage when it's just not necessary, man. You got the friggin' Avengers around you. Just check the damn thing down. And so I think that has gotten him into trouble sometimes. He's had some issues with ball security in the pocket. A couple of times he's fumbled this year without even being hit, which is just, intolerable. Jeez. And the other thing, which obviously, as we've talked about, that could be an issue today, is he's not good in the elements. He's terrible in the rain. I've literally seen him drop back to pass, wipe his hand off during the play at the top of his drop, and then try and throw a pass. Like, he is not good. Now, I haven't seen him in the snow. I've only seen him in the rain, but obviously in the snow, the ball gets wet, your hands get wet, so that could be an issue for Brock. So it's a combination of all those things.
Was one of his criticisms the tiny hands? Was he in that group? I don't remember.
He has the same size hands as Patrick Mahomes. So I don't know if Mahomes has small hands or not. All I know is they have the same hand size.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess the big thing for me is like the defense. Do you think a lot of it is is the offense putting the defense in bad positions? Because I was surprised by some of the defensive metrics as far as like critical spaces. So they're 26th in third down, they're 29th in red zone. Like those are not things I'm used to seeing with the San Francisco defense. So what do you attribute to that this year?
Well, first and foremost, they're just flat out not as talented. They're not as talented as the years past. It's not even close. The talent, especially on the defensive line, has eroded. So like they're forget like, oh, this is not what the 49ers defense does. It's not the 49ers defense. It's older, it's slower, they've had injuries, plus it's just not as talented. So all of that is a factor for sure. You know, Nick Sorensen, I don't know if he's in his first year as a defensive coordinator. I think that's part of it. They really only have one guy that can rush the passer. Nick Bosa is the only one, and he ain't playing on Sunday. So Josh Allen is not going to be under any pressure whatsoever the entire game. And when I say like not any pressure, I mean not any pressure. Like no.
Yeah, I was surprised. I watched that Seattle game, and the second he went out, it was like a switch flipped, and all of a sudden Seattle could play offense.
Seattle averaged 3.3 yards per play when Bosa was on the field. Once he got hurt and he couldn't play anymore, they averaged over 6 yards per play.
That's insane. That matches the eye test. Yeah, yes, that's crazy.
Like, he's the only one. So that is obviously a massive. If you can't get pressure on the opposing quarterback, and the Niners secondary is decent, but again, without pressure, eventually guys are going to make things work, particularly Josh Allen, who can do it with his legs and his arm.
And then the injuries too, right? Like Lenore being out, and then the injuries you had earlier in the year too, right? Holofonga, is that how you say his name?
Hufanga, Lenore, like I said, Mooney, Charvarius Ward hasn't played in a month because
Charvarius Ward.
Like it's just been a combination of all of those things. I actually, you know, people get on me. I think the defense has been okay. The shift that the Niners were supposed to go through this year was where in previous years, especially when Jimmy Garoppolo was there, the defense was the unit that they leaned on to close things out. It was the defense. This year going into the year, I said, the defense is okay. It's not as good, but it's good enough. But the offense is going to have to be the unit that closes it out. When your offense gets the ball back with 4 minutes, they're going to have to be able to go down the field, add another score, make it a 2-score game, and lock the game down. And they have not done that this year. So the defense is average. Unfortunately, the offense has been average this year when it comes to points anyway. And that's why they are 5-6.
Yeah, I was surprised by the offense red zone. They're 25th in red zone offense. That was pretty surprising to me.
It's awful. The closer they get to the goal line, the less they can run the ball. So they struggle to run the ball anyway. And then when they get closer to the goal line, it's just like
what changed? Because earlier in the year with Mason, they were running the ball pretty well from the outside perspective. But what shifted? What's changed since then? Do you think?
I don't know, because the weird thing is usually with Kyle Shanahan, their run blocking improves as the year goes along. This was supposed to be the time of year where they're in lockstep and they are just churning out yards and dominating people on the ground. The opposite has happened this year. Aaron Banks at left guard and Jake Brendel at center have been hideously bad. Like there was a play where Christian McCaffrey was trying to run a counter. He takes one step to the right. He cuts back to the left as the play is designed. And Jake Brendel, the center, literally gets shoved on the ground directly into the path that Christian McCaffrey is running. Like that's how bad it has been. It's so bad. Aaron Banks is not going to play in this game. He's got a concussion. I'm excited because he's not going to play. Not because he's hurt. I never wish for anybody to be hurt, but because the backup, Spencer Burford, might actually be better than Aaron Banks. That's how bad that left side of that line is. So the run blocking has just fallen apart. And that's really what
Trent Williams is. I mean, you can't even put into words the impact he makes. I mean, he is just on another level when it comes to blocking. I mean, the things you can do with him too. It's just,
so yay.
I'm not sad about that, man. Him in the open field is just one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my life. Like it is crazy the way he moves.
He's a freak of freaks. He's just now got to the point where he's like, should I be watching what I'm eating? He's 36 years old and he's I got to start taking care of my body. And they're like, dude, are you serious?
That's insane. Yeah, just genetic freaks. All right. Well, having said all that, you're still right in the thick of the NFC West. Like, I mean, right there, right? I know, but you're right there. The schedule's brutal, though. So at Buffalo, you got Chicago at home. That could be nice with everything going on there. Rams at home, and then at Miami, Detroit at home, and then at Arizona. So, what is the feeling in Niner Nation about the stretch run here?
Well, let me just say this. They're a game out of first place in the NFC West and a loss away from having a top 10 draft pick. So that should tell you where they are.
Yeah.
The feeling is it's just not their year this year. The feeling is, hell, you made it a good run last year. You got to the end of overtime against the dynasty of dynasties in the Kansas City Chiefs, and you didn't pull it out. And so this is like a kind of a step back year. It's a transition year. I think the core of this team needs to change going forward. Now, the good news for Niners fans is they seemingly hit on almost every single one of their draft picks this year. Ricky Pearsall looks good. Renardo Green, their corner in the second round that they got, looks good. Dominic Pooney, the right guard they drafted in round 3, has been a stud. He's been unbelievable. Instant plug-and-play starter. Malik Mustafa, the cornerback they got for, or the safety they got for trading.
I like him.
The Cowboys. He looks really good. He's become a starter this year. So the good news is, like, they're trying to restock the cupboard, but I think that most Niner fans would tell you they probably shouldn't have run it back this year. They probably should have started to make the transition after the Super Bowl and sort of got a jump start on that rebuilding process, so to speak. They tried to patch it together, and it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, that's tough to do, like to know when to do that when you come that close to winning the Super Bowl and then having to say, oh, yeah, we're going to do a transition year this year. I mean, we're the Bills are kind of in a similar situation where, like, the core of the team needs to get younger and shift, and this is supposed to be, the rebuilding year or whatever. But yeah, it's tough when you have to do that, and especially coming off of Super Bowl. It's crazy. But I feel like that's kind of been the Niners, though. It's either NFC Championship, Super Bowl, or miss the playoffs. It's like
right. That's exactly what it has been since 2019. I mean, well, 2017 and 2018 they missed the playoffs. They made the Super Bowl in 2019. 2020, they were horribly injured. They missed the playoffs. NFC Championship game 2021, NFC Championship game 2022, Super Bowl 2023.
Yeah, that's crazy. And people want to fire Kyle Shanahan.
Idiots.
That blows my mind. We'll take him. I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Because, there are a lot of 49er fans that think he forgot how to coach, that he was never a good coach, and just ridiculous. Yeah. It's like you want a church raffle to have the team that he's had.
Yeah, I mean, the two teams are very similar, right? The Bills as well. Like, these are two of the two winningest teams since 2019 as well, both in the top 5. And I think they're similar as far as, like, they can't quite get over the hump. And so the fan base is like, well, we have a good enough team and they're itching. And so it's trying to point the blame somewhere. But I mean, only one team gets over the hump, right? And we're both running into essentially the same team as far as the Chiefs, who are, arguably going to go down as one of the greatest dynasties of all time. I mean, right now, right? I mean, they've been to 6 straight AFC championships, 3 Super Bowls. Like, they're trying to three-peat, which has never been done. So it's crazy. And so it's frustrating, but you don't just blow up a good thing because there's a better thing out there. Right. Yeah. They've been to 4. Yeah. They've been to 4.
Bucks, Eagles, Niners.
Yep. Been to 4, won 3. It's crazy. Yeah.
Somebody beat this team. Please, I was so happy that Buffalo beat them. Like,
that's all we can do, man. We beat them in the regular season. That's all we do, man. We beat them in the regular season. Can't do it in the playoffs. So hopefully this year will be different. But we're definitely built to play well against them. So we'll see. To some of the Bills, I guess the other Bills talking point for this matchup is really just coming out of the bye week. Can we start the run? Try to go for the 1 seed now that we've beat Kansas City. We obviously need them to lose a game, but our schedule, the remaining, isn't anything crazy. We have Detroit as our crazy away game. Otherwise, at the Rams, obviously the 49ers this game, and then it's Jets and the Patriots twice. So, yeah, it's those last 3 games are definitely manageable. You got to like our chances against the Rams this game, and then Detroit is at Detroit. That's tough no matter what. Yes. So we'll see what happens in that game, but that's the big thing for this Bills team is get out of this game healthy and go in that stretch run that they've been really good on the last 4 years. Do you have any other talking points before we switch into some of the trenches and skill mismatch stuff?
No, I was just going to say, it's been a long time for 49ers fans where we are going into a game where it's like we'd be stunned if we won this game. Like things
Yeah.
have been really good in San Francisco for a really long time, but now I had to sort of break out my like anatomy of an upset talking points. Like what are they going to need to do? Well, you can't turn
Yeah.
it over, you got to steal yardage with special teams. Like that's where we are in this game, but you've had to shift your expectations and we'll see. I mean, could it happen? Sure. The Niners do still have talent on the roster, even with all the injuries, but they have a very narrow path to victory. And this used to be a team that could kind of screw around a little bit and get away with some stuff and still win. That is not the case anymore.
Yeah, I think this game was definitely circled on. I mean, a lot of Bills fans for sure, but I think a lot of football fans in general as one of the marquee matchups, all season. And it's a shame what injuries do, but we all face them, and it just sucks when the injury bug hits, and it kind of tarnishes a matchup like this. Who knows? We could get a great game, a classic, but yeah, it sucks when most of the talking points are, well, they do normally do this, but with all the injuries. So yeah, it sucks. And I would say that was us last year for sure, especially going to the playoffs. I mean, we played Kansas City with our sixth linebacker who was packing an RV up with his family at home to go on a road trip, and we called him the couple days before the Chiefs playoff game. And then he's guarding Travis Kelce over the middle. So yeah, I mean, we definitely understand that. So it's tough, but hey, that's why we play the games. You never know. All right, so trenches. We'll get into the trenches a little bit. San Francisco defense, they're 20th in the NFL in sacks, 28 sacks. They're 11th in pass rush win rate, 10th in run stop win rate. Obviously, no Nick Bosa. He's 8th in pass rush win rate for defensive ends. And then Malik Collins is 9th in defensive tackle pass rush win rate. What have you seen from that D line? And obviously, with no Nick Bosa, do you expect any philosophical changes, scheme changes to kind of work around that?
Well, that's something a lot of 49er fans have talked about. It's something that a lot of Niner fans have wanted to see, but it's something that really they've been hesitant to do. The problem is that they're not good when Nick Bosa doesn't play. And when they blitz, they don't get home usually. And then they leave their secondary, kind of out to dry. So you can try to change some things up schematically, but I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. And I think also the Niners have been hurt by running quarterbacks, particularly in key moments. So I'd love to be able to say that, yeah, they'll switch it up and they'll find a way. But you block Leonard Floyd, who I know you're familiar with. He's really the only threat with Nick Bosa out. He did have 2 sacks last week, which is nice. But I mean, again, it's nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I mean, even with Fred Warner, he's been so banged up this year playing on that fractured ankle. There's nothing to worry about in the 49ers defense. All you got to do is just not give him the ball. Hell, even if you do give him the ball, they might not catch it. Jordan Love threw him 2 picks last week that they I don't mean to sound simple or like I'm trying to BS you, but it's just the truth.
Yeah. How has the run defense been, or how does that affect it as well with Nick Bosa being out? I know that they rank well, but how do you think they will be tomorrow night?
Oh, they stink against the run, especially with Bosa out. They're not a good run defense. They're a very poor tackling team. They missed 20 tackles against Green Bay last week, and they're trying to sit here and say, well, that's because Josh Jacobs is really good. Dude, I don't care. You missed 20 tackles. Like that is
crazy.
Poor. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. So, yeah, I don't expect them to stop the run. They'll make up for it by not stopping the pass. They're really good on first and second down, and then they're awful on third down, no matter what the distance is.
I was shocked by that. 26th and third down percentage. That is crazy to me.
It'll literally be like 3rd and 15, and I'll be sitting there nervous, like, oh my God, they're going to give this up. I don't think this is enough. Like, they're just, they can't rush the passer. So,
and the Bills are 9th and third down offense. So
yeah, it's a big, like, let me just tell you, I ran out and took the Bills -6.5. I was like, are you kidding me? Smash.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, which is kind of weird to say though, in a game like this, is the weather might be beneficial
Mhm.
for the Niners just because of the chaos it can cause, right? Turnovers, it can limit some of the explosiveness and passing plays, stuff like that. And but yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of the matchups here aren't looking too good. So for the Bills offense,
They look
what?
great for you.
Yeah, yep. That's kind of what scares me though, being a Bills fan though. We're used to the letdowns. So Bills offense, they are 32nd when it comes to allowing sacks. So they allow the least amount of sacks in the NFL. A lot of that has to do with Josh Allen obviously being very mobile, but their O line has been very good. They're sixth in pass block win rate and 19th in run block win rate. Their left tackle is phenomenal, Deion Dawkins. He's 14th in pass block win rate. And then their right tackle has been really good as well, Spencer Brown. He's right around the 20-22 mark usually for pass block win rate and run block win rate. So yeah, I think it's going to be a challenge for the 49ers to create pressure. And then when they do, Josh is really good about avoiding that. And then that's kind of when the chaos ensues, both good and bad, is once he gets out of the pocket and starts scrambling. I don't know if Niners fans remember that the game in San Francisco a couple years ago, but that was kind of Josh's, he had some throws that were just ridiculous in that game. That was a little bit of his coming out party. So we'll see if he can recreate some of that. This talking more for this game too. I guess it's piling on the narratives for health versus not healthy, but this is one of the first games where the Bills have actually had all their wide receivers. They went out and traded for Amari Cooper from Cleveland, and then all their wide receivers got hurt. So Curtis Samuel's been dealing with turf toe and then kind of like a shoulder pec thing. And so he's been really banged up. The last two games he's been getting healthy and he's finally been playing well. So that's nice to see. Keon Coleman, their rookie wide receiver, was playing phenomenal and then hurt his wrist. And he's missed 2 games. So he's coming back. So that's nice. Him and Cooper have only played 1 game together. Khalil Shakir missed a game with his ankle injury, and that looks like it's finally healing up. He's really good. He's kind of their go-to guy, security blanket for Josh. Really big yak guy, leads the NFL in yards after the catch, and one of the most efficient wide receivers in football. Doesn't have a drop this year. In the last 2 years, he's been extremely efficient. Let's see. And then Mac Hollins is kind of their utility guy, blocker, do it all guy. He probably will play less now that some of the other guys are healthy, but he's their dirty guy, gets in, blocks, and then has a couple key catches. So it'll be interesting to see the distribution of snaps for this game for the Bills because they haven't had this complement of wide receivers to kind of work in. That's a good thing, but it also could be stumbling block for trying to figure out like how to work them in, snap shares, trying to script plays to certain guys to get them the ball. That's kind of tripped the Bills up in the past. They kind of get an idea of what they want to do and they kind of force it instead of just naturally letting the ball find its way around. So that's something to watch on the Bills side. Flipping it around to San Francisco offensive line, we talked about it a little bit, but the numbers, they allow the 22nd least amount of sacks, so 2.1 sacks per game. A lot of that is, from what I've seen, is Purdy being pretty nimble as well and scrambling around. Pretty underrated skill set for him. They're 11th in pass block win rate, though, 26th in run block win rate, which goes to what you said as far as pass blocking this year, or run blocking this year, sorry, has not been very good at 26th. And then Trent Williams, he's second in pass block win rate. So obviously not having him is big. He's always in the top as well for run blocks. Pancakes, he's always in the top of that as well. So not having him is pretty big. The Bills' D-line against them, they're 21st in sacks. They've had 27 sacks this year, but they create a lot of pressure. It just doesn't always transition into sacks. They're 12th in pass rush win rate and 5th in run stop win rate. Greg Rousseau, number 50 for them. He's 13th in pass rush win rate. Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver, their defensive tackles, are 17th and 18th in pass rush win rate. And then Ed Oliver's ninth in run stop win rate. So they create a lot of pressure naturally, which is four linemen. They don't always blitz a lot. They'll do like simulated pressures and stuff like that, but they've been creating a lot of pressure. It just hasn't translated necessarily to sacks.
Well, they'll have success this week. The 49ers offensive line is not good. They're banged up. Purdy is excellent at getting away. Like,
Yeah,
people
he is.
sleep on how good he is because he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson. The one elite skill that Brock Purdy has is elusiveness. He can get away from people. He does the Mahomes stuff where he's running and throws a random pump fake like 5 yards past the line of scrimmage that always works every time. And he'll just, like, if they need 4 yards, he squirts away for 5. If they need 6,
Yeah,
he'll dive and get 7. Like, he's that kind of guy.
he's a lot quicker too than you think.
He is. He really, like, I would put his scrambling ability, not straight running, but just scrambling ability. I'd put it up there with anybody, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and the way he moves in the pocket too, I was really impressed when I watched him. Like, he kind of just slips out of some of those lanes and stuff like that, and that was impressive to see. So yeah, we'll see. They do interesting things with mobile quarterbacks, so we'll see if they do that with Purdy. Sometimes they'll have one of their linebackers spy, and since both their linebackers are very athletic, they'll kind of have them sit a yard or two behind the line of scrimmage and wait 2-3 seconds, and then rush in, whichever way the quarterback's getting flushed. They did that against Mahomes 2 weeks ago before the bye, and were really, really successful with it. So maybe they'll do something like that with Purdy, because otherwise, when they play their traditional zone and drop back into it, they've been susceptible to running quarterbacks, especially on key downs. And this year, they've been running more man concepts than they have traditionally, because their outside corners are very good. And so that's something to watch for, is Purdy scrambling ability.
They're going to need it, honestly, because, like,
Yeah.
they might need a little chaos to function, because the Bills, otherwise, I think, like, you're going over all the matchups, like, on paper, they're vastly the better team. So you might need a little chaos if you're the Niners.
Yeah, and third downs in this game are going to be interesting, both for offense and defense. I think they're kind of mismatched, right? San Francisco defense is 26th, Bills offense is 9th, and then San Francisco offense is 6th, Bills defense is 21st. So it's definitely something to watch, is long drives, third down, a lot of third downs converted. That could work in San Francisco's favor as well, as shortening the game, that kind of thing as well. So,
but let me just tell you, the Packers Niners game last week, the Niners ran 3 plays in the first quarter. 3.
That's insane.
The Packers were able to shorten the game because they were able to run the ball. So the Bills are going to be able to run the ball and short. Like, if your goal is, like, get out of Dodge without an injury, just run the ball. It's going to work every time.
Yeah, and the Bills are a really, really good run team. They're extremely efficient. The large numbers, the volume numbers aren't necessarily there, but they're extremely efficient. When they want to run the ball, they can really run the ball. Aaron Cromer came over from the Rams as our offensive line coach, and they just get better seemingly every game. This is second year now, and they do a lot of different concepts. So they were started as zone running, then they went to gap, and they go back to zone running, and then they'll switch depending on the running backs. And even with the running backs, like Cook was traditionally a zone runner, and then they've switched him to a gap runner, and then they've gone back to zone. So they switch it up a lot depending on the defensive tendencies, and they're very multiple in their run game. So this could be a spot where, they break that out and go really run heavy. We haven't seen that in a while. They were doing it earlier in the year and just dominating teams running the ball. Like the Miami game is a good example on Thursday Night Football week 2. So we'll see. Maybe they break that out this week. I'd be all for that. So I like limiting Josh's dropbacks as much as possible when I don't need to. Got a couple comments. So Spin says Coleman was in a red non-contract jersey on Friday. Yeah, since they didn't call up a wide receiver from the practice squad, I'm kind of interested to see if he still plays. I'm guessing he'll be limited if he does play, but like I said, this is one of the first games where they've had all their wide receivers, so he doesn't necessarily need to play or dress. They have plenty. So we'll see if he gets in there. I'm guessing they want to at least get him some action. Could be situational. He could only run certain, routes instead of blocking, stuff like that. So that's definitely something to watch. For 49ers fans, that's Keon Coleman, the rookie out of Florida State. All right, so let's see. Offensively, mismatches. Is there anything stylistically you see from the 49ers offense that they'll try to do this game? Like, their most of their weapons, obviously, besides Ayuk, but Samuel, Kittle, um, obviously CMC playing, Jennings. Is there anything you'll see stylistically that they'll try to do in this game? And then maybe something with the weather that they'll try to do differently that they wouldn't do if it was a normal weather day?
Well, I would say that they would run the ball, but like I said, they've been so bad at it recently. Especially, they've been trying to run to the outside a lot with these long developing pitches, tosses to the outside, and it's just been awful. They've been gaining like nothing, and I'm not meaning like 3 yards. I'm meaning like nothing on
Is
these
that
runs.
because of CMC, you think?
I think maybe a little, but honestly, I think it's more just due to the run blocking. It's just been poor.
Yeah.
I don't think that like Niner fans have been screaming for the backup Jordan Mason to play more, and
Yeah.
I just keep telling them it's not going to help if the line doesn't block. It doesn't matter which running back is in the game. So
I
what
mean,
I
no Trent Williams really hurts,
yeah,
especially if you're trying to stretch stuff out, right?
that definitely hurts for sure.
I mean,
What the
like,
Niners try to do is they try to run the ball with Christian McCaffrey. They use him in the slot and they keep use check on the field to try and keep you in base defense. And then they use McCaffrey's versatility as a receiver to really put you in a box. Because if you try to cover him with a linebacker, you're going to lose every time.
yeah,
He's amazing. Now, maybe Matt Milano can help in that area. You'd know better than me, Matt Milano's coverage skills, but the Niners, I'm sure, would still be willing to take that bet. And if you try to
yeah.
cover McCaffrey with a member of the secondary, that's going to open something up for Kittle or Debo or Jawan Jennings. So with the Niners,
Yeah,
like
I'm interested in that. That's a really good point because the Bills don't run base defense ever. Like they're nickel 90 whatever 8% of the time, 99% of the time. They do not want to go in base. They will take their medicine. You saw it in the Ravens game, right? That was part of the reason why the Ravens beat them up so bad is they were running light boxes like 70 something percent of the time against heavy boxes by the Ravens. Not even just, normal like 12 personnel. Like they would run 13 personnel or bring us six linemen in, and the Bills would just stay in nickel. So that's something I'm interested to see. Obviously, Matt Milano coming back. No one knows how they're going to use him when he brings that third linebacker element that they really like. Dorian Williams has been playing in his place and has been getting better and better. He's really good downhill. Thumper, very athletic, but not as good in coverage. He still is learning his gaps and zone responsibilities and stuff like that, and kind of can get lost in space and coverage. So they do take him off the field on third and longs, and they'll go to a dime defense, bring in Cam Lewis or Jamarcus Ingram. People are wondering if they'll bring in Milano in that situation in third down. So it's definitely something to watch what the Bills do because they definitely invite the run. The Bills want you to run on them. They want you to run on them all day, and they're okay with that. And they'll give up 4 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards. That's okay. They will live with that because eventually you're going to get a holding penalty. They're a penetration style defense as well, so they are trying to cause negative plays when you run. So they're trying to get a loss of 3, a no gain, a loss of 1, and so you have to throw, right? And so they're okay if you get 5 yards or 6 yards here or there because eventually they will get you into a second and long and third and long. And so that is what they're after. And so they just don't want explosive runs. So anything over 10 yards they don't want on the ground, but they're okay giving up yardage all day long. They'll do it all game. And so this is definitely going to be a cat and mouse to see if the 49ers can get him out of nickel. So we'll see.
the Niners would love it. I mean, that's what they'll try to do. They'll be like, great,
Yeah.
let us run on you.
Yep.
But that's the other thing, like exactly what you're talking about. Little things like that. They'll gain nothing on a run, and then it'll be second
Yep.
and long, and then there'll be an
Yep.
incompletion, and all of a sudden it's 3rd and 10, and then
Yeah.
you're on the 8 ball. Or what has happened a lot of times for the Niners this year is they'll be driving down the field, they'll get an explosive play. They're still very good at generating explosive plays. So they'll get like a 40-yard play, and then it'll put them at like the other team's 30-yard line or 20-yard line, and then it'll be a holding penalty. And then boom,
Mm-hmm.
10 yards back, and then the drive just dies. It just completely stalls out. So all this
I'm
stuff.
interested to see the pass game because that's why the Bills live in nickel is they run the cover 2, everything, keep everything in front of you, no explosive plays, and their outside corners are very good. Christian Benford and Rasul Douglas. I'm sure you guys probably remember Rasul Douglas from the Packers, but they're both very good in our zone scheme, and they do not give up a lot. I mean, Christian Benford's a top 5 corner in football this year. Very, very stingy, and then they keep their safeties back to protect them. So I'm really interested to see what Kyle has cooked up for explosives.
Well, I'll tell you this: don't put Benford on Deebo Samuel. If you're talking about a guy that's a good corner, the receiver for the Niners, you have to worry about Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. I loved him in college, and it's good to see him playing well. But he's awesome.
He is awesome. He can get open against man coverage. He's physical. He blocks people into the Gatorade. Literally, in a playoff game against the Packers last year, he blocked the guy into the Gatorade on the bench. Like, he has that mentality of like punch you in the mouth. He is the guy you have to stop for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel is nothing. Don't even worry. Just put anybody on him in man coverage, and he'll be a ghost in the game. You don't have to worry about it.
I'm interested to see how much they run man too. Like, they're predominantly a zone team, but with the corners they have this year, they've been running a lot more man depending on the team and the matchup. So I'm interested to see if they do run man. I know zone 49ers aren't really the best team to run zone against, so I'm interested to see what they do, because you guys kind of eat that up zone, right?
Yeah,
right.
If you run man, you'll shut down the whole offense. Like, Brandon Ayuk was their man beater. Kittle can get open against man coverage, but they don't target him enough. He's been awesome this year. He's their one star this year that has played like a star for the entire season. George Kittle is the one. He's still just as good as ever. He catches the ball. He runs down the field like a drunken rhinoceros, and he breaks tackles the whole way.
He'll get some, but the Bills are pretty good against tight ends with Terrell Bernard. He's pretty awesome in coverage. He's I won't say he's Fred Warner, but he's right there. I mean, he was all pro level all of last year, and he's right there this year. I mean, he is unbelievable in coverage.
So 85 and 15. Those are the guys you got to worry about. Ricky Pearsall, their first round pick, has looked pretty good. Now, he got shot in the chest before.
What a crazy story, man. What a crazy story. I'm a Gator fan, so a big Ricky Pearsall guy. And also went to Arizona State as well. So big Ricky Pearsall guy. But yeah, that was a crazy story. It was so sad to see that. Glad to see him back. But man, talk about throwing a wrench in your rookie season, man. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously, it's a miracle that he's even alive, let alone playing football.
Sure.
But he's been coming along pretty quick. The big complaints for Niner fans is he's just not getting enough opportunities. They haven't targeted him enough. He's looked good when he played. He had a 46-yard touchdown the other day, I think I want to say, against Tampa Bay. That was awesome.
He's sneaky fast too.
Yeah, caught it over the middle of the field and outran Winfield for the touchdown. It was fantastic. So we were all hoping, like, all right, here comes Ricky, and then he doesn't have a catch the last 2 weeks. So who knows?
Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's tough to gauge with the rookie too, and there's so many mouths to feed on that offense. I feel like too, even with Ayuk out, makes it tough. But I'm excited for him. I think at any moment he's a big play waiting to happen. Same with Jennings too. I mean, he's had some monster games in the past,
and he's a guy that gives them a little juice too. Like, he catches the ball, breaks a tackle, gets up, he pumps up the offense a little. Feels like it gives you a little momentum. Niners don't have a ton of guys like that. I would say most of Jennings and Kittle, even McCaffrey, like, he makes great plays and it's awesome, but he doesn't have the same, I don't know. It's just different when Kittle and Jennings and Deebo, if he ever decides to actually do it, makes a play.
Yeah. What's the deal with him? He's kind of had some of those negative things the last couple of weeks, right? In the press and in the locker room and stuff like that. Not talking to the media last week. And is there any idea what's going on with that, or is he just frustrated with losing and not putting up numbers? Or
he's a front runner. He's a front runner. It always has been. When times get tough, Deebo Samuel hides with his tail between his legs, like he did last week when Brandon Allen, on a critical third down, rips a ball in tight coverage. Perfect pass from Brandon Allen, little high, goes right through Deebo's hands, gets intercepted by Xavier McKinney, and returned to the Niners' 26-yard line, and that was the game was over. And Deebo refuses to talk to the media after the game, runs out of the locker room. Then he tries to claim on his podcast that, well, they said they didn't need me, so I just left. And the Niners beat, who never call anybody out. The Niners beat was literally like, no, the team informed us that you refused to speak to the media, so you're full of it. And he's a front runner. That's all it is. When times are tough, he can pout and he just mentally check out. And I think that's where Debo is right now.
That's a shame too, because when watching him in college, and then when he came out, he was that gritty dude, that would go over the middle, be the running back and fight for yardage, and you just break all those tackles, and you just don't see that anymore. It's a shame.
Nope. I hope he's off the team next year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because there's some money, right, that can be relieved by him moving on
for this season. For some reason, they restructured.
Okay.
So they'd have to eat. It'd be a $30 million cap hit if they cut him or traded him before June 1st this year. But I don't want his he's a captain.
Drama.
He's a captain, and
we know all about that. A wide receiver with drama, big cap hit. Getting rid of him in the offseason when you probably weren't planning to, but he's forced his way out. You could see that happen. I think I've seen that story before. Houston might need a wide receiver after this year, so maybe that's a spot.
You can have him.
Yep. All right. Well, I don't know if you had any time, but do you have any player props or anything you like in this game? We dabble in that in this show. So
okay. Well, hold on. Give me a second.
If you're not ready, I can go with mine and then
pick one and give me a second to look it over, and then I will give you some.
All right, so the Bills defense gives up a lot of running back receptions and receiving yards. They are number 1 in the NFL. A lot of that is they're okay with that, right? Keep everything in front of you, let the offense check things down. They're not a great screen defensive team traditionally. This year they've been better. They actually have a couple interceptions off of screens because of Austin Johnson, their D lineman. Also, Matt Milano coming back, Terrell Bernard being healthy. I think they're better against that, but I guarantee you CMC is going to be available if they want to throw to him. I'm sure they'll have eyes on him, but I like him over his line of 30.5 receiving yards. I think that's a little low. Yeah, he's averaged 40 yards receiving a game this season, so I like him to go over 30. That is -113.
I will take George Kittle over 3.5 receptions. Now, unfortunately, the number is -167, which I don't love at all.
That is low, though. Only 3.
He's been their most consistent guy. Actually, in a weird way, I would like this number better if Brandon Allen was the quarterback, because George Kittle thrives with backup quarterbacks. Because backup quarterbacks are like, screw it, 85's down there somewhere. I'll just chuck it.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily do that, but I still think, one catch per quarter for George Kittle. They ran 3 plays.
That's so low.
They ran 3 plays in the first quarter last week, and he still hit the over. That tells you
crazy.
He's been the guy. So I will easily take that. Like I said, I wish the number, -167 is not great, but it's going to happen.
They call me the parlay prince on our betting show on Sunday mornings, and so I'm all about that. You just wrap that into a couple other bets, and then it doesn't matter, right? So you're just looking for surefire things. I think that's pretty surefire. Spin's got one here. He says his hot take is both Cook and Davis, Ray Davis is our backup running back, each have over 100 yards of total offense, not necessarily rushing. The Bills like to throw to their running backs. This could be a game with the weather where more checkdowns, things like that. So the running backs. So, maybe I could see that happen. Davis has had a long touchdown before, 60-yard reception. So we'll see. I definitely think this is going to be a Cook game. I'll swing that right into my next player prop, which is James Cook over 63.5 rushing yards. Like you said, San Francisco defense not great right now against the run. This game script really leaning more towards a run-heavy game. Cook's gone over that number numerous times this year. And then I also like a James Cook over 2.5 receptions. He's done that in 3 or 4 games, and I think this is another game where they could be looking to get easy completions with some of the weather.
I could sign for both of those. The Niners can give up checkdowns for sure, especially if Josh Allen has to run around a little bit and make something happen. So I think both of those are good. I'm going to go with Brock Purdy over 4.5 carries. I think he's going to be running for his life in this game.
Yep.
They don't do.
I like his rushing total too. It seemed pretty low. I think it's like 19.5. I think the reason why is maybe the shoulder, and they're worried he won't run as much. But Maybe he won't do some of his craziness, diving and stuff like that, but you just run and slide or get out of bounds. But I totally agree with you. I think that's a great call.
And as much as he has scrambled around this year, he actually has done an excellent job of protecting himself. Most of his runs, he doesn't get hit. He did get hit most recently a couple of times, but that's because he made stupid friggin' decisions instead of taking the check down. But like usually when he runs, he doesn't even get hit at all. But yeah, that'll be a thing to watch. Does he dive like he always does? He usually is not a slider. He usually dives forward. It's very rare to see him do like the baseball slide, but maybe he does this week if that shoulder's not 100%. But I still think he's going to run the ball just out of necessity more than 4.5 times. And his yardage, what was his yardage total for
19
rushing?
and a half. It's so low, right?
He's
gone over that quite a few times in the last couple of games.
Yeah, he has this way of like squeezing every yard out of a run too. He's very slippery. I would take the over on both of those.
Yeah, I think the Bills fans know this well. If you want to protect your quarterback, a lot of times you want him to run. Like a lot of injuries happen in the pocket for quarterbacks, not when they're running, especially if they're safe, unless maybe you're Tua, I guess. But yeah. So I think if he's trying to protect himself, I think get out of the pocket, scramble, and then just get down, and that's a good way to do it. I got one more on offense. I got Khalil Shakir over 5.5 receptions. And a lot of that is because I think just this game as well. Josh likes to go to him at the line of scrimmage, even behind the line of scrimmage, or just short yardage. He's gone over that number in the last 5 games, and I think that'll continue this game because of the game script. They really like to manufacture touches for him, and I mean 6 catches is not a lot for your number one option, especially with Dalton Kincaid out. That's kind of been their 1-2. For easy yak yardage, and so I think Shakir will benefit from that. So over 5.5, and that's plus 108, even though he's done that the last 5 games, which is crazy to me. Maybe they know something I don't, but that's wild number to me.
I think you could feast on any of the Bills receivers overs because the Niners secondary. Bernardo Green.
They don't have any of the numbers out though right now because they're waiting to see what happens with Coleman. So Cooper doesn't have any lines last I checked. So they're waiting to try to figure it out. What's going on with who's playing for the Bills. But yeah, I agree. I think Josh will throw in the weather too. We've seen it a million times, unless it's that crazy game against New England where it was like 60-mile-an-hour, winds and stuff like that. And the Bills, for some reason, didn't want to throw until late in the second half and then realized, oh, Josh can still throw in this. Like kicks were going backwards. It was insane. That game was unreal. Yeah, punts were going and they were literally coming back towards the line of scrimmage. It was crazy.
That's like, honestly, I feel like that's the only way the Niners win this game is if it's they need a biblical event.
Yeah, they weren't even kicking field goals that game. Like it was literally like you score or you turn the ball over on downs. So it was wild. All right, do you have any more? I have 2 touchdowns, but do you have any other props you like? It could be a touchdown too.
I think though that's it. I would take Brock Purdy over 0.5 interceptions. He's gonna throw.
Okay. I did look at that. I was interested in that because the Bills do force a lot of turnovers, and like we said, with the weather and maybe the game script having to force some. So yeah, that's interesting. What were the odds for that?
They weren't. I didn't love it. Let me see. Let's see. Intercept. No, that's defensive interception. It's minus 121.
Oh, okay, that's great. Yeah, that's good for interceptions. Normally they're like 150, something like that, minus 150. So, Spin, that was a brutal game. That Belichick really, really pissed off McDermott. I have not seen McDermott that mad, I don't think, ever, and since where they said, oh, that was a genius game script by the Patriots for just running the ball in the poor weather, and they just kept running the ball, and they called him a genius for that. So it's crazy. All right, so anytime touchdowns, I like Cook anytime touchdown minus 115. That just is way too low for me. For your lead back, they've been giving him the ball in the red zone, and San Francisco's red zone D has not been good. So I like Cook minus 115, and then I like a Cooper first touchdown at plus 1,000, mainly just because I like the odds, and the Bills have shown they like to throw to him when they get into the red zone, and so I could see that in this game. So
James Cook's going to score at least twice. I'm not concerned about that.
I'll take it. I'll take that.
Yeah. Everybody into the pool in terms of Bills props this week for sure.
There we go. There'll be no sad Bills fans if that's the case. So, all right. Well, we'll get into the blueprint to victory. We'll let you go since you're the guest with the 49ers blueprint to victory. You can either break it up offense and defense, however you want. But what would be the 49ers blueprint to victory?
There's three things they have to do. They have to not just win the turnover battle, they have to never turn the ball over, and they have to generate turnovers on their own. They have to find a way to steal yardage, a kickoff return, a punt return, something like that. If they do get a turnover, a big interception return, they have to find a way to ease the burden on the offense because they've just been shooting themselves in the foot too often. And they have to cut out the crippling penalties. 3 out of the last 4 weeks, the Niners have had 9 penalties in the game. You can't, when you are the less talented team, you can't do that. You can't play with your food. You have to take advantage of every single opportunity. And the last thing I'll say, I always say this, but it doesn't matter with Kyle Shanahan because he never changes. You have to steal possessions. If it's 4th and short, you have to go for it. I always say on the pod, field goals are failures. And in this case, field goals ain't beating Josh Allen. They're not. So Kyle loves to get conservative because he always tries to coach to avoid the worst case scenario. You're going to lose this game, Kyle. You got nothing to lose. Go for it on 4th down because as good as Josh Allen is, there ain't a damn thing he can do from the sideline. And that's the only way you're stopping him. The 49ers aren't likely to do it, but that is the way they're going to have to do it because they're the less talented team. They're on the road, and there could be weather.
Yeah, and field goals aren't what you want to kick in Buffalo either, especially with the weather they could be having. It's a tough place to kick. The wind swirls, and if you're not familiar with it, our kicker struggles too there. So it's definitely not a place where you want to settle for a field goal and then miss it. So
right.
For turnovers, I totally agree with you. My thing on offense is no turnovers. The Bills lead the NFL in turnover margin at plus 14. San Francisco's kind of middle of the pack. They're at 0, I think. So even turnover margin. But for me, it's no turnovers. Don't give, as you say, the lesser team more opportunities. And then dominate the line of scrimmage and run the ball. This is a game where the Bills should be able to dominate the line of scrimmage and run the ball and take advantage of that. And then pick your spots where you want to try to gain some chunk plays, but definitely don't abandon the run. On defense, limit missed tackles and rally to the ball. I think that's where San Francisco creates their explosives is on the yak, especially with Kittle, CMC, stuff like that. So the Bills have been doing better with tackling and not having so many missed tackles. They need to keep that going. And then I think they got to have a plan to stop the run. I'm interested to see what they do. I don't necessarily think they got to go to base, but get creative with some of their alignments and run blitzes and things like that. And I think just don't let San Francisco get that going because then everything builds off the run for them, right? Play action and bootlegs and stuff like that. And so if we can stop the run, I think that will be huge and make it a drop back passing game. I think if this becomes a drop back passing game, it's going to get ugly very fast.
You win. It becomes. I say it, but
the Bills are just built for that. I mean, their defense is built for a drop back passing game. They want you to do that. So, score predictions. I'll let you go first since you're the guest.
Oh man, 28-10 Bills.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I have it a little closer. I have the Bills 31-23. I think maybe a late score by San Francisco makes it closer. But yeah, I think the same thing. I think it'd have to take a pretty crazy script for the Bills not be able to take advantage here. They're obviously the way healthier team coming off a bye. Like I said, they're 7-0 off the bye with Sean McDermott. Very, very good, especially this late in the year. When it gets into December, they really don't lose games. So I think it'd have to take a pretty crazy game script. But hey, that's why we play the games. So.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts on the matchup?
just beat Kansas City for us, please. That's it. Just please. I can't take it I can't
I know.
take it anymore.
We would love nothing more than to kick him out of the playoffs, man. Nothing more. Trust me.
I'm such a fan of Josh Allen, and the amount of hate that he gets. It's like people don't even watch the playoff games. He's a mutant in the regular season, and he's better in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. And people are like, "Oh, Josh Allen can't get it done." It's like, yeah, because you got Patrick Mahomes, you got the greatest offensive mind of his generation, Andy Reid, and the best defensive coordinator of all time, and you got to beat all three of them at the same time. They're really good, man. They are really freaking good. So if the Niners can't do it, which this year they definitely can't, please, Buffalo, please, I am rooting for you. And I'm also rooting for you because people like to try and criticize and knock Kyle Shanahan by calling him Kyle Levy, which I think is hilarious because you're saying that Kyle Shanahan is a Hall of Fame coach.
Right.
But so I'm all for the Bills winning. I'm all in support of you guys. Not this week. I'd like to see the Niners pull it out, but that's probably not going to happen. So if not us, you.
Minecraft Steve asking, will the Bills get the 1 seed? Yeah, I mean, they obviously have to take Kansas City to slip up. I mean, Kansas City keeps fooling around with the likes of the Panthers and the Raiders. They're going to lose another game, right? They got a couple tough ones left. Chargers, Broncos, Steelers, Houston. So they could easily lose one or two of those. But the Bills are a game back, so they need to lose one less than the Chiefs, essentially. So I think realistically, the Bills need the Chiefs to lose 2. And then I think that lets the Bills go 5-1 the rest of the way out, and then they'd get the 1 seed, tying the Chiefs with the same record. So it's definitely possible, but it starts tomorrow night, taking care of business against the 49ers, and then hopefully the Chiefs will slip up once or twice. They've flirted with disaster way too many times. I don't think this is the same Chiefs team we've seen, especially defensively. The metrics on them are crazy. Like, they're opposite of the 49ers. The 49ers metrics are all pretty damn good. They're at least top 10, top 15 across the board, except, red zone. And the Chiefs are not. Since Justin Watson went out, I think it was like week 8, the Chiefs are like 28th or worse in every category, like except the run. They're good at stopping the run, but they're atrocious against the pass. They're really bad red zone. They're bad on third down. Like, they're not a good defense, and that's kind of what's carried them the last few years. And then Mahomes does his craziness, right, and pulls the game out or leads the last drive. So it's definitely possible for the Bills to get the 1 seed, and I think that would be huge. Get the bye, get healthy, make the Chiefs have to play an extra game. I think that's big too. So
100%.
We'll see, hopefully.
Yeah, and I do think that Chiefs defense is they're not quite as airtight as they used to be. Like, I saw the Broncos go down the field at the end of that game against them. I saw Baker Mayfield go down the field and score a touchdown at the end of the game when they needed to have it at critical moments. You just talked about Carolina doing Carolina.
They did it and get the 2-point conversion too. That was insane.
Not to say they're not good. They're a great defense, but it's
sure
a little different, and that's sometimes all it takes in those key moments.
Yeah, I agree. They let we had a drive to end that game as well, where we went all the way down the field and scored the touchdown to go up 2 scores. And traditionally, that's where Kansas City stops you and gets the ball back and takes the lead. So yeah, I definitely think they're not the same. Steve also has Purdy playing. Yeah, we talked about that earlier, and Brock Purdy's going to play. I don't think there's any limitations. I don't think they would play him if there was a risk of anything. It sounds like he was a full participant right on Friday. Is that right?
Participant on Friday. He's technically questionable, but he said he's playing. Like, he has stated he's playing. He said he's full go, no limitations. Again, we'll see, but on paper, he should be good.
All right. Well, Rob, I appreciate it. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and what you got coming up next?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of the 49ers Gold Standard Podcast Network. You can find us wherever you get your audio podcasts. Also, check out the 49ers Gold Standard YouTube channel. If you want all up-to-date information on the Niners, please check us out. We're coming up to 20,000 followers, which I'm blown away for. So please, 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 if you know anybody that likes the Niners, or you just feel like giving out a free subscribing for nothing, we'll take it, because that would be a big number for us. Please check us out. I promise we won't let you down.
Yeah, definitely check them out. I'll be subscribing as well. I know that really helps the algorithm and getting more people in there. So, Rob, thanks so much. Hopefully, we can do this again sometime. Maybe get some off-season stuff going. That's always fun to do some crossovers and get the outside perspective on your team from a different fan base. So, thanks again, and I wish you guys luck the rest of the season. Just not tomorrow night.
I hear you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you. All right. Now we'll get into the what I'll be watching before the game. So obviously the game's not till Sunday night, so there's a slate of games going on beforehand. So these are the games that I'll be tuning into, watching before the Bills Niners game. So first up's the LA Chargers 7-4 going to the Atlanta Falcons 6-5. Obviously, for Bills fans, the Chargers are most likely going to be a playoff team. Hopefully, they are, because that means they're probably keeping out the likes of Cincinnati, Miami, those teams on the doorstep. I'm interested to see Chargers on the road against Atlanta. Atlanta's kind of a really two-faced team. They either play really well or play terrible, sloppy, and get blown out. And the Chargers have had a pretty soft schedule, and then the teams they've played that are good, they've lost. So I'm interested to see if the Chargers can go on the road and play their brand of football. I think it matches up well against the Falcons. I think they should be able to control the ground game, play solid defense, maybe force a couple turnovers, and win that game. So I have the Chargers winning that game against the Falcons. Player prop wise, I really like Lad McConkey in there. I think it's a good matchup. Falcons are top three outside wide receiver points this year. They're giving up top three most. And they haven't been very good in the slot. So I think it's a good matchup for Lad to kind of move all over the place and get his line was over 60 yards. I think he'll easily get that. So I like Lad McConkey there. And then Atlanta also is not great against tight ends. I think Disley's got a chance to go over his mark as well. I think it's like 38 last I checked. So I like him going over 40. I want to see how they work in the backfield. They got J.K. Dobbins has the knee injury. I'm not sure he's going to play. I think it's going to be Gus Edwards and Kamani Vidal, their rookie. I want to see the snap share there and how Gus Edwards looks. I really think they need Gus Edwards to play well. So that way Dobbins and Edwards can kind of be complementary between them. Dobbins just wears down too much and gets injured. And I think if the Chargers want to be something the rest of the season, they really need a balance between the two of them. So that's it for that matchup. Next one I'll be watching is the 8-3 Steelers at the Cincinnati Bengals, who are 4-7. That's another 1:00 game. Should be a great matchup. Obviously, eyeballs for the Bills in that game are playoff matchup. So Steelers seeding purposes, and then the Bengals, can they win out, make a run, and sneak into the wild card spot? Divisional matchup for them. Those are always fun games to watch with the AFC North. And so I'll be really interested to see that matchup. I think stylistically, you couldn't be any more different, right? Steelers want to control the line of scrimmage, pound the rock, and then do play action off that for some chunk plays, while the Bengals don't run the ball at all, and they want to just chuck it all over the field. So I think it's an interesting matchup. Can the Steelers D-line get after Burrow? And can the corners limit enough of Higgins and Chase to make it a game? I think the last thing the Steelers want to do is get into a shootout. So game script wise, like if the Bengals can get up early, score early, I think that really is beneficial to them. And I worry about the Steelers being able to score early, control the ball, control the game on the ground, and then the Cincinnati having to play catch up. But it should be a really good game. Spin says a tie game would be best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Bengals game. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think really it might be a game where you want the Steelers to lose if you're the Bills. But if you look at the Steelers' schedule, it's pretty brutal. I mean, their schedule is really tough. They still have Kansas City. They got the Ravens, the Browns again, which already beat them. So it's tough for the Steelers. So maybe it's one where you want the Bengals to pick up their 8th loss here and effectively be eliminated. Essentially, they still have a chance if they win out, but you get to 8 losses, you're pretty much done in the East with Denver and the Chargers right now, holding those 2 wild card spots. Nightmare says, we got hardly any starters and can't play in the snow. Enjoy the free win. Hopefully, you guys take the 1 seed from the Chiefs. Yeah, like we talked about earlier. Like, it's a tough spot. The Bills definitely understand being injured in a game where you feel like you probably could compete really well and have a chance. It's tough when injuries are like this. We experienced it last year going into the playoffs against the Chiefs. We were super banged up on defense, and it just sucks when you feel like your full squad would be a really good game. So for the Bills' sake, I sure hope we win, and definitely can chase down the Chiefs and get the 1 seed. And then the Niners are, I mean, still in it with the way the NFC looks, even with the loss here. Obviously, they'd have to go on a run to close out the season, but they're more than capable of it and sneaking into the playoffs. So that's Steelers Bengals game. God, I can't trust the Bengals. Like, they should win that game. They're at home. They're so explosive on offense, but their defense is terrible. Like, so I don't know. Is this going to be an ugly AFC North game where the Steelers limit them, kind of beat up Burrow a little bit? Or is it going to be where the Bengals are explosive with Higgins and Chase, and then the Steelers can't catch up? Like, I don't know. It's a really tough game for me to handicap. I think the Steelers should win that game, but man, I don't know. It's a tough game for me to pick. The Steelers or the Bengals are favored last I looked by 3, so I don't know. I'd probably take the Steelers as the road dog if you're giving me points. I don't want to see the Bengals in the playoffs. I don't think anyone does with Burrow and those weapons. Especially if that defense can just do anything, like force a turnover, get a stop or two. Then I think that's all you could ask for, and that offense should take care of it. Burrow's playing at a really, really elite level. So that's going to be a phenomenal game. Highly recommend checking out that one. If you're not familiar with the AFC North battles, maybe you're used to watching NFC games. Those are usually some really fun matchups. Steelers Bengals. They can get pretty crazy. The other game I'll be watching is Cardinals Vikings. That's in the early window as well. That's an NFC matchup, obviously, but 2 teams that should be in the playoff picture, right? Cardinals in the West, they hopefully will be competing for it. I was disappointed with how they played last week in Seattle, so I want to see if they can bounce back on the road against the Vikings. It's a game the Vikings should win at home. But you never know with Darnold, and then with the chaos merchant of Kyler. Like, Kyler either looks great or looks pedestrian. So this is a game where he thrives on the chaos of Flores defense, where they're doing cover 0 and Kyler's just lofting the ball up to Marvin Harrison Jr. The Vikings pass defense isn't good. They give up top 3 most yards in football to wide receivers. So this is a game where Kyler can get lucky with a couple deep balls and beat the cover 0 blitz, maybe. But it should be a good game. Darnold's kind of regressed with Christian Darrisaw, the left tackle for the Vikings. When he got hurt, Darnold's numbers have really dipped. Their left tackle play has been really bad. They traded for Cam Robinson from the Jaguars, and he's been bad. He was bad for Jacksonville too, so I don't know why they thought he'd be better, but he's been bad. And so Darnold under pressure is not good. And so if the Cardinals can generate any pressure and get after Darnold, I'm sure they could cause a couple turnovers, maybe even a pick 6, and make that a game. So I'll be checking that one out. Fantasy wise, I definitely think this could be a spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. He's so up and down, but you might be able to buy the dip on some of his yardages. They're pretty low. And he's kind of a big play merchant this year. So last week, like, he had a 50-yard touchdown called back. So I like him in this spot. And then for the Vikings, I like Aaron Jones. I like Hawkinson in this game too. He's kind of been heating up. They've been going to him more and more. Darnold really likes to look at him when he's under pressure, and this could be a spot for Hawkinson to break out. I could see him going for like 7 catches, 70 yards, something like that, maybe a touchdown. And then Jordan Addison has been another guy that they've been designing some really cool plays for and scheming them open. And so Addison's numbers are pretty low again this week. So I could definitely see Addison going over his yardages. Next game I'll be watching is the Colts. They're 5-7 at the Patriots, 3-9. Not really the most beautiful game on paper, but um, for the AFC East, you obviously have the Patriots, and then the Colts are kind of competing for that wild card spot with Miami and Cincinnati. Can one of them run down the Chargers or Denver? And then I'm interested to see this Colts team. Like, can they bounce back? Tough game last week, but how does Anthony Richardson look? I want to see how Drake May looks. I usually try to run like the quad box on YouTube TV with Sunday Ticket. So that'll be the fourth game I'll probably have on in the quad box. It's not the most interesting game, but there's a couple props I like in there. Alec Pierce is a guy I've really liked this year. Is kind of boomer bust, but he's dealing with a foot injury right now. And then Josh Downs isn't playing for the Colts, so this is a spot for A.D. Mitchell, their rookie, where you could see him get a lot more looks. Michael Pittman's been dealing with a back injury for a while. He's been gutting it out. He had a pretty good game last week, so I think between Pittman and Mitchell, this could be a spot where they both get over their yardages. Patriots pass defense hasn't been that great, so I think those are two spots to check out. And then on the Patriots side, I like what Drake May has been doing. He's really good under pressure. And so that's a spot where I'll probably be looking at some of those lines. His weapons wise, though, are tough to gauge. Like, the only one he's really going to consistently is Hunter Henry. And they haven't really bumped up his numbers too much. So Hunter Henry receptions, like if it's over 4 or 4.5 receptions, I'd probably take that as well. So I like that. Sick of them stacking their teams with top 10 picks. Yeah, the AFC East needs to win some games so they don't get all the good picks. We'll see. I think they've definitely found their quarterback, though, for the Patriots. If you haven't watched Drake May yet, I highly recommend checking him out. For a rookie, he does a really good job under pressure and evading pressure and making good plays in chaos. And that's usually the sustainable metric for a young quarterback. If they can do that, then that's usually a good sign. He's pretty fun to watch. Some of the throws he makes are pretty ridiculous. So in the late window, the 4 o'clock window, I'll be watching the LA Rams at New Orleans Saints. Obviously, for the NFC West guys, that's a game you'll probably want to watch too. I'm sure you'll be rooting against the Rams. And then the Saints as well at 4-7, still alive. The Saints are tough to get a read on as well this year. Obviously, with the injuries they've had, they've been super banged up. They're getting healthier now, and so they're a squad I'm not sure I want to face at home. They're pretty explosive. They signed MVS from the Bills, who the Bills cut. And, man, he's been going off the last 2 games with deep balls from Derek Carr. They lost Shaheed to injury, and so they were looking for another deep threat, and he's filled that void. And that's Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr is either check down or deep ball guy, and so they've been having some really explosive plays, and the Rams give up a ton of explosive plays. So it's definitely could be an exciting game, a little bit of a shootout. I think the Rams wide receivers should have plenty of space to work against this Saints defense. And I think they'll even be able to run the ball with Kyron. So I think this could be an exciting game. Some big plays. And so I'll definitely be checking it out. I like Puka Nacua to go over his yardage and receptions. Whenever he's healthy, they like to feature him. And so I think he's the guy. Kupp will always get some, but whenever they're both healthy, they seem to like to go to Puka more. So I like Puka. And then obviously for the Saints, I like MVS. His yardages are so low, but really it's just one catch. They love throwing bombs to him. So I'd look at MVS anytime touchdown, MVS over 40 yards receiving, and anything like that are pretty low lines. And then Alvin Kamara, I think his receptions are way too low. He's at like 4.5. And that number's way too low for me. I do worry about a Taysom Hill stealing touchdowns from Kamara, though. They really like to use him in short yardage packages and stuff like that, and that kind of hurts Kamara's chances of scoring. So I'd be careful with the Kamara anytime touchdown. Not saying he won't do it, especially through the air, but I do worry about Taysom Hill taking that over spin. MVS just took over the Raheed Shaheed role. Yeah, I totally agree, man. That's exactly what happened. That when Derek Carr got hurt and Shaheed got hurt, that offense went away. It went from being the number one scoring offense after I think it was 3 weeks to like one of the worst offenses of football. Now that Carr's back and then they sign MVS, the last 2 weeks they've been really explosive. So I wouldn't look for that to stop, and that makes a better watchable game. So I'll be watching that. That's Rams at Saints. That's a tough game to handicap. I think that's a game where traditionally you would say the Rams should win that, but I worry about their defense preventing some of these explosives. Their D line's really good. I think they'll get after it. I think they'll get after Carr. It really comes down to how Carr handles the pressure and can he make the big throws when he needs to. Carr tends to be better though against like the blitz and cover zero. Not necessarily against like organic pressure. So I think if the Rams can get organic pressure, I think their defense will be all right. But can they stop Kamara? Obviously, they didn't do so hot against Philly. That's a whole nother animal with Barkley and Philly. But if the Saints are able to run the ball with Kamara, which I think they might be able to, it's going to be really tough on the Rams to stop that offense once Kamara gets going and they start play actioning. So I worry about this game from the Rams side. It's really tough for me to pick. I stayed away from it from a betting perspective, just for that. Like it's a really hard game for me to read which way it's going to go. The other 4 o'clock game I'll be watching is the Eagles 9-2 against the Ravens 8-4. That game's unbelievable. That game's a great game. I have both of them ranked really high in my power rankings. I think the Eagles are firing on all cylinders, and it's a great matchup. Like, can the Eagles stop the run? I was worried the Rams and Kyren Williams ran a lot better than I thought they would be able to against the Eagles. So if Derrick Henry and Lamar can do that or better, I think it's going to be trouble for the Rams. I think that's where the Eagles. Sorry, I think that's where you can get the Eagles is on the ground, and so we'll see. I thought that the Eagles would be able to play better against the run with that front, Jordan Davis, but they didn't. They didn't do as well as I thought. So we'll see. I know they had some injuries on the back end. How are you going to watch all these games before the Bills game? Well, because the Bills won't be on. The Bills aren't on until Sunday night. So I got to do something with my time. So I'll be watching all these. I won't be at this Bills game. The Sunday night ones are tough. You got 10 TVs on your wall. I have a room with 2 that I normally watch in. Sometimes I have another room in the basement with 3. But with YouTube TV and NFL Sunday Ticket, you can do the quad box. I'm not sponsored by them. This is not a commercial for them, I swear. But yeah, you put the quad box on for Sunday Ticket on one of the TVs, and then I put the main game I really care about on the other TV on the big screen. But you could just have 4 games on one TV now. It's great. You can customize it to whatever 4 games you want. So I do that, and then the late window, if it's 2 games or 3 games I just put all 3 on one TV. You don't need multiple TVs anymore. It's great with technology. So yeah, that Eagles-Ravens game I think is going to be great. I think that's a Super Bowl caliber matchup. Honestly, I think there's a script where both those teams could make it. The Ravens obviously would have to shore up their pass defense. I think that's where the Eagles can get after them. Obviously, you have to worry about stopping Barkley. And so if you don't have the corners who can cover outside, then you really got to pick your poison there. And I think that's where the Eagles can kind of get after the Ravens is, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith. I think he's playing. That could be where the Eagles kind of go back and forth with the Ravens, blow for blow. Really interesting matchup, though. I want to see how both these – it's more so how the defenses match up than necessarily the offenses. And I think the Eagles defense is better than the Ravens defense. So what Ravens defense can show up? Can they scheme enough to prevent the Eagles offense? Can they get a turnover or 2? Can they get some pressure on Jalen Hurts? I think that's going to be the story. Otherwise, this could just be a back and forth shootout. Which would be great for TV, but I'm interested to see how that goes. I think I would probably trust Jalen Hurts a little more in that, but Lamar's unbelievable, man. If Lamar's on it, he's borderline unstoppable when he's on it. So I think that's going to be a phenomenal matchup, and I'll definitely be checking out that game. That could be one of the games of the year for sure. See from Spin. Eagles, Lions, Vikings are the Super Bowl teams for the NFC. Bills, Ravens, Chiefs are the AFC Super Bowl teams. Super Bowl matchup is going to be among those teams. Yeah, maybe. I don't know about the Vikings, man. I don't think I trust Darnold enough to be able to make it happen. That offensive line, like I said, without Christian Darrisaw really worries me. And then their pass defense just gives up way too much. Flores against like good smart quarterbacks is tough because they usually can see what he's trying to do, and he doesn't normally have as good a track record against those style quarterbacks like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen, stuff like that. So I don't know. I kind of worry about the Vikings, but I really like Kevin O'Connell. So I'm not sure. I'd put him up there, but with that, we'll segue into my reverse power rankings. I do this every week. I update it. Please feel free to comment if you disagree, if you think it should be in a different order. Here's what I have for right now. I have the Giants at 32. No surprise there, right? Brutal. What's going on there? I have the Raiders at 31. Obviously, they played the Chiefs tough, but so is everybody. Carolina and anyone who's really played the Chiefs has played them pretty tough. So I don't give them too much credit for that. We'll see if they can do that against another team, and maybe I'll move them up. But right now I have them at 31. I have Jacksonville at 30. We'll see with Trevor Lawrence coming back, if he plays, how he looks. Big game, Houston at Jacksonville. Another game that I will probably be watching as well. How does Jacksonville look in that game? Houston's pretty gettable right now. They're kind of sputtering. Can Jacksonville show up and steal a divisional game? They played them really tough in Houston. Came down to the end of the game. So how does Jacksonville look? But based on past performance, I have them at 30. Raiders should be ranked 43rd after that debacle. Yeah, it was brutal, man. That was right up there with some of the worst I've seen. I mean, obviously what happened with Chicago on Thanksgiving, that's about as bad as it gets. But the Raiders one was close as well on Black Friday. That was tough to see them, mismanage the clock at the end, and then obviously the botch snap to end the game. That was really tough to watch. I don't think Antonio Pierce is a good coach. I think he should definitely be gone after this year, but it depends where they are with rebuilding. Like until they can get some more foundation in there and get a quarterback, I don't think they're really going to be contending anyway. So like, is he just like your tank commander for now until you get things settled and then you get rid of him? I don't know. We'll see what they do, but yeah, they're a mess. Poor Kevin, part of our network, co-host on No One to Blame. He's a Raiders fan and he's having it rough right now. So Raiders 31, Jacksonville 30. I have the Jets at 29. What a dumpster fire the Jets are. Love to see it. No one is happier than I think everybody outside of Jets Kingdom to see the Raiders just be a dumpster fire and a disaster of an organization. So they're playing terrible. Their defense is bad since they got rid of Saleh, and they're just a bad team right now. I have them at 29. We'll see what they do this week. It doesn't really matter, but hopefully they lose again. I love watching Aaron Rodgers lose. So I have them at 29. I have Carolina at 28. It's nice seeing Bryce come back, play better. He played really well against the Chiefs, led that drive at the end. I like what I'm seeing from him. And they're a punchy team right now. The defense is playing better. That defensive line's getting some pressure. And that was always their problem to start the year, is that defense could not create any pressure at all. So I have them at 28. And by the way, for new people, these rankings are based on the team right now. So it includes injuries and everything going on. It's not how we project them to go forward or what we think of their team like perfectly healthy. It's if they were to line up right now, how would we have them ranked? So Carolina 28. I have New England 27. I don't think New England's a good team. I don't think anyone really thinks they're a good team, but all the teams below them are even more of a dumpster fire. I guess Carolina, New England would be like a pretty good matchup. So you could flip them around if you really wanted to. But I have New England 27. I have Dallas 26. Um, I don't know. I've kind of liked what I've seen from them lately. I don't think they're a good team, but they're at least playing a lot better. They haven't given up. The defense is playing better, obviously getting guys back like Parsons. And then they got a little fighter's chance on offense now. Cooper Rush is at least slinging the ball around. They're able to run the ball a little better than they have all year. Maybe that's because of their opponents. The Giants can't stop anyone running the ball. It's amazing how bad that run defense is. But Dallas is at least like, I don't know what you call them, like a plunky team right now, a spunky team. I don't know. They're messing around and winning a game or two. So I guess that just hurts their draft stock. They're not going anywhere. Their talk after this game was, oh look, we got a chance now. We're gonna win out, and we'll get into playoffs. They're not gonna win out. So we'll see what they do. But I have Dallas at 26 right now. I got to at least respect that they beat the lowly Giants. Cleveland at 25. It's the up and down roller coaster of Jameis Winston. Their defense, when they want to show up, can keep them in any game, but they don't always show up. And then you have Jameis, who picks and chooses when he wants to play. I don't love their play calling. I think that's part of it. It's harder for them to get a rhythm. They put a lot on Jameis's shoulders. I don't think you really want to do that. They're not running the ball great right now, but they're at least. I'd probably pick them to beat all the teams below them. So I have Cleveland at 25. I have Tennessee at 24. Yeah, it's crazy the last couple of weeks, the turnaround that they've had. They at least look like a competent team. I mean, their defense has played pretty well all year, but it's really been the offense just playing so bad. Like Will Levis literally was a net negative for the majority of the beginning of the year. Like literally you would be better if you had no quarterback than him at quarterback. Like the amount of backbreaking turnovers and not even just turnovers, but pick sixes and red zone in your own, and turnovers like were just brutal. But he's turned it around and played pretty well the last couple weeks. And that's really good to see. Calvin Ridley's been a top 3 wide receiver the last couple weeks in yardage, which is crazy as well. And that's good to see. Westbrook Akine, their slot receiver, has been really good. And then Tony Pollard's been really effective as well. So Tennessee's a tough team right now. Like I mean, if I'm like a middle of the pack team or looking for like a wild card, I don't really want to play Tennessee right now. I think they can kind of beat up on some teams and put up some tough matchups. And if you don't play your best ball, like you're gonna lose to Tennessee right now. So I have them at 24. We'll see. Maybe they go out and lay an egg, and I eat crow, but I'm giving them a little respect now. I have them at 24. 23. I have New Orleans. We kind of touched on them. I think it's their offense is pretty explosive when they got all the pieces together right and cooking and the right recipe going. I think they kind of are back to that a little bit. And so I'll respect that ability for them is to score and score quick. Their defense has been really up and down for me. I kind of worry about that. And so we'll see in this Rams game. I think it's a great test, right? Like they got to defend your dirt, right? You got to win at home. This is a spot where they should win, but the Rams aren't a pushover. The Rams can come in there and easily beat you. So it's a good test for New Orleans. So I have them at 23 right now. 22, I have Chicago. I probably should put them like way lower, but they're in these games, man. Like they're competitive. Like Caleb looked awful the first half and then looked decent the second half. Their defense at least keeps them in games. They have playmakers. I don't know. Maybe Eberflus is a boost now that he's gone, like and out of the way. I don't know. The offense at least has looked better under their interim offensive coordinator. So I don't know what to do with Chicago. But they've been competitive. So I have to at least give them credit for that. And the way Eberflus has managed this team and his press conferences and even the end of that game, I mean, you can't do worse, right? You can't do worse. It's kind of like when, although those were famous last words I had because it was Robert Saleh, I said the same thing about, like, I totally understand the Jets firing him because what could happen? You can't really do worse. And then they went and did worse without Robert Saleh. So I guess there's always worse. But I don't know. I'll give Chicago the benefit of the doubt here, and maybe getting rid of Eberflus will help them at least be competitive, like win some of these games competitive. I don't know. I feel is Chicago the Chargers of the last like couple years, like where they're in these games, they're competitive. You start wanting to root for them because you feel bad, and then they just find more ridiculous and stupid ways to lose these games. That's kind of what they feel like to me. Like they're the Chargers of the last couple years. So, but they're just in the NFC. I have them at 22. I think they could beat a lot of these teams, and they could. They've already shown they can lose to most of these teams too. So we'll see. They might get a little bit of the head coach bump here too. I don't. We'll see. The 22 Chicago. We've talked about them more than enough. 21's Indianapolis. I probably have them too high. But I see that what they're trying to do. I like the makeup of their team. Maybe I'm buying them a little high. I think if Anthony Richardson can play the smarter ball he's played with since he's been back, that goes a long way. They can run the ball. I think a lot of it is their offensive line injuries, though. They've really been banged up on the offensive line, and they can't seem to get the same guys to play more than like a quarter together. And that makes it really tough because when you have Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson in there, like that's your bread and butter, man. Run the ball, RPO, and then take those deep shots to your weapons. They got the weapons, Pittman, Downs, Alec Pierce, and AD Mitchell. That's a really good 1 through 4. So I like what they got. Defense, they got some playmakers, especially on the interior with Buckner healthy now, and Grover Stewart. So I kind of like them. I don't think they're like this great team or anything, but I think they're a solid team. They're probably ranked right about where they should be ranked, and much like Chicago, like I think they can beat a lot of these teams. They can hang with most teams, and we'll see what they do down the stretch. Like they could go into New England, lay an egg, and lose, and then I'm going to drop them way down there because I'll feel embarrassed. I'm going to have to make myself feel better by punishing them and ranking them lower. But right now I have them at 21, so we'll see what they do. 20, I have San Francisco. I think San Francisco is a way better team than 20, much like the rest of the NFL thinks San Francisco is a much better team. I guess unless you're probably in the NFC West, and then you're just laughing and pointing at San Francisco. But really, though, like it's just one of those years, man. Like the injuries are bad, they're piling up, and they're happening at bad times, and that's kind of what happens to San Francisco. They're either really good or they're like this, banged up and lose games. So I have San Francisco at 20, though. I think they could still, if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, they play a clean game. I think they can beat most teams in football. Definitely all the teams below them. So I have them at 20. It's really hard to judge them right now, though, with the talent they're missing. I mean, you're missing your number one pass rusher, your number one corner, your generational left tackle, like wide receiver 1. Like, I mean, it's just crazy the top tier talent they're missing. So it's hard to judge them, but I have them at 20. I have the Rams at 19. I don't know why I have the Rams this high. You could easily talk me down on the Rams by numerous spots here. I just like them to start the year. I think their young talent is playing really well. They just can't put it together, man. Stafford, like, is forcing some stuff, some bad turnovers in bad spots, some bad sacks, like just frustrating to watch them play right now. But I'm scared when they're firing on all cylinders, man. When Stafford's on, that offense is tough. This middle of the pack, these teams in the middle of the pack are just, you could flip a coin with how they compare against each other week in, week out. There's so many Jekyll and Hyde teams this year. So I have them at 19. The next team is the same exact thing for me, Atlanta at 18. Like, what do you do with Atlanta, man? Like, one week they look really good. They got all these weapons. And the next week they get blown out by Seattle or they get blown out by somebody else. Like, I don't understand who this Atlanta team is. Obviously, it's, Kirk Cousins. You go as he goes when he's feeling it and throwing the ball all around and getting the ball out of his hand quick. That offense is super explosive with Drake London and Pitts and Mooney and all those guys. So Bijan Robinson, they have a good offensive line. And yeah, their defense has been disappointing to me, though. I thought they'd be better on the outside. I thought they'd generate more pass rush. They have not been able to generate a pass rush. And I thought with adding like Judon and some of the pieces they added that they'd be good, but they're not. So they worry me. But again, like this middle of this tier, I feel like they have the makings to beat teams and to be good, but they just haven't put it together. So I have Atlanta at 18. Next team is the same thing, man. Miami at 17. Like, what do you do with Miami? Like, they go and lay another egg in cold weather in Green Bay on Thanksgiving. Like, that's a tough spot for them on the road. Green Bay, short week in the cold. But like, okay, you have your offense. Like, you should be able to at least move the ball. Um, yeah, Tua put up numbers at the end, but they weren't they weren't doing anything in the first half. They weren't doing a lot there. So I don't know, man. Miami worries me. I don't think Miami's tough. I think they're a soft team, and I think in December and January, soft teams get exposed and they don't win. And so Miami's got a tough uh, test here. They got to pretty much win out to have a shot, and they need some things to go their way. I still think they're super explosive when they're firing on all cylinders, and I don't think anyone really wants to play them at home or in a dome. But in January, I'm not too worried about this Miami team. Like, they are soft, and they keep feeding that narrative. 16, I have Arizona, another team, right? Like, one week they look great, next week they look terrible. Like, they gave that game away in Seattle. Like, yeah, Seattle made the plays, but Arizona scored the points for them essentially. Like, they couldn't do anything, and then they had to go and compound the problem by giving the ball away to Arizona. Or, I mean, to Seattle. So I don't know what to do with Arizona. Every time I drop them way down on my list, they rip off a couple wins in a row and move up. They're skating right now. They're on a losing streak. They got to start winning games. They got to win in Minnesota if they want to take this division and get in the playoffs. So we'll see with Arizona, but man, like Jekyll and Hyde, this chunk of teams here in the middle. 15, I have Tampa Bay, like another one of those. Like, they're just injuries for them, right? Like, it's so tough when you lose your number one and number two wide receivers. Now they have Evans back, so we'll see what they can do. They got to start ripping off wins as well. Then they got to catch Atlanta essentially, right, for the division. So Baker, I think, has been playing well. They can run the ball. I think Bucky Irving gives them a nice dynamic out of the backfield, and then that kind of puts Rashad White into a better role for him as far as that scat back, pass catching back who can also spell you for some carries. I think whenever he's a feature back, that offense just looks terrible. I think Bucky gives him a way better explosion out of the backfield, and then Kate Otten and Evans, I think, give you two really solid targets. So I like Tampa Bay. I just worry about their defense, like which defense is going to show up. They've been really banged up in the secondary, and so I think if they get pieces healthy, maybe they'll play better. But they're banged up again this week, and they got injuries on their defensive line, and they lost a safety, and so we'll see with Tampa. I want to respect them, but man, they make it tough. Seattle at 14, like, what do you do with Seattle? Like, you gotta respect that they beat a division rival at home, but like, is anyone scared of Seattle? Like, I'm not. Like, we went into Seattle and like that was not much of a game. We'll see. They got to travel or they got to go to the Jets. Like, can they win on the road? They went on the road earlier in this year. Was that week 1 against New England, and that didn't look too good. So they got to take care of business, but I don't know. The Seattle team doesn't scare me, and I don't think they scare most people. That defense has the makings to be good. They played a good game against Arizona, so maybe that's what keeps them in it. And then it's what can they get out of their offense. You'd think they'd be able to do more with their offense, but their offensive line just hasn't been able to run block and pass block like I think they wanted them to. They've had a lot of moving parts with their tackles. So we'll see with Seattle. But I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now, especially coming off a big divisional win at home. So I have them at 14. I have Washington at 13. I am worried. They're on the block right now of like falling out, like maybe missing out on the playoffs, like going on a losing streak here. I worry about them. Their offense has not been looking good. Um, their defense is not great either. They don't generate a lot of pressure. They don't cover well. And so that offense has got to control the script, score points. Otherwise, that defense is in trouble. And that offense is just not doing it. Is it Cliff Kingsbury, his typical, start out hot and then fade? Is that what's going on here? Is it injuries? Is it Jaden Daniels, the rib injury? Like, is he still suffering from that? If he gets fully healthy, are we going to see them playing better again? He hasn't been making the same throws he was earlier in the year. So, could it just be his ribs that are causing him to not throw like he was? I don't know. Yeah, I agree, Spin. Like, he's starting to come back down to earth, more like falling into a hard landing. Yeah, he's not looked like the same player, but a rib injury, cartilage injury can do that to you. I mean, think about trying to have to rotate and get power and throw the ball with like a rib injury. Like, that doesn't sound fun. Um, and so maybe that's it. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was so good to begin the year, and he was making some unbelievable throws in the pocket, like really nice. And he just hasn't been doing that since. Like, their explosive game has not been the same, um, explosive passing game. So we'll see. I have him at 13. I'm kind of waiting to drop them here too far. But man, they got to turn it back on and start winning some games. I'm worried about them. I have Cincinnati at 12. I don't know. Like, I want to believe in them. I've wanted to believe in them all year, but boy, do they find ways to lose games. And they keep doing it. They got to stop, right? Their margin. They might be able to lose one more game, maybe, possibly. Realistically, I think they need to win out, and then it probably comes down to a tiebreaker. They don't have an easy schedule, so we'll see. If they went out, then watch out, because I don't think anyone wants to see a hot Cincinnati team in the playoffs. They got the Steelers at home. Like, got to take care of business, and then we'll start talking about it. So I think this is a big test for me on them. If they can take care of business against the Steelers at home, and I think this is where they belong. If they lose that game, then for sure they need to drop, and we'll see how the rest of the year goes. But I have Cincinnati at 12 because right now, if they lined up, I think they would beat the teams below them, or at least be favored. Um, I have Houston at 11. Um, what is what are the Houston Texans like? They might be the enigma of all enigmas. Like, their offensive line, like, what are they doing? They can't run the ball anymore. All of a sudden, they went from being like this power run game with Mixon that you couldn't hold them under 100 yards to now like not being efficient running the ball. Like, they can't pass protect to save their life, and so Stroud is panicking and running for his life. Nico's back and he looks good, but then they have all these penalties that kill these big plays and put them in bad positions, and so like the pieces are there for them, man. Their D line is getting after it. I mean, Hunter and Anderson Jr. are dominant, man, and they're tough, and they got good corners on the outside who can take the ball away. It's just tough, man. Like, they are just not putting it together right now and just beating themselves. And that was a tough game to lose against the Texans at home. Like, you cannot lose that game, and so they put themselves in this position where, yeah, they should win their division, right? Like, they don't have much competition in their division. But if they mess around, like, and the Titans go on a run, like the Colts go on a run, like, it's possible they could miss out, but you don't really want to be limping into the playoffs. Like, and that's what I worry about them. Like, they can't turn it around and get it going, and they limp in the playoffs. I think the Diggs injury was really big for them because he was kind of their safety valve, and he would run a lot of the dirty routes, underneath routes, the quick throws, and kind of keep the chains moving. And they don't really have that now. They haven't found that. Like, that's not really like Nico's a down the field guy. He's not really a short yardage guy, quick route kind of guy, man beater. Tank Dell's not been the explosive guy he's been in the past. And then they don't really have anyone else to run those short routes. And so I kind of worry that's maybe the cause of some of the problems. But that O line is trouble for them, and I worry about Houston. So I'll be watching that game for sure. They go to Jacksonville. They should beat them, but we'll see. We'll see with Houston. I respect what that roster is right now. Like, on paper, lining up again, like, I think they would compete against a lot of these teams. It's just what Houston team shows up. It's kind of like if Cincinnati played Houston right now. Like, is that a pick 'em? Does it depend if it's home or away? Like, that's kind of like how I'm measuring these teams. Like, that would be a great game to watch. I don't know which way I would lean in that game. Like, maybe Cincinnati, but it'd be a great game. Denver at 10. Like, would you pick Denver to beat Houston and Cincinnati? Like, I don't know, man. Like some of these teams really are interesting matchups and sticklers. Like I respect what Denver can do as far as their defense, and then their offense has been a lot better than I thought. Like it's been coming into its own. Bo Nix has done enough. He's hitting the throws he needs to hit. Cortland Sutton being a top 3 wide receiver in football right now is just blowing my mind. Always loved his ability, but I mean, go look at the stats, man. The last 5 weeks, he's been, I think, the best wide receiver in football, at least yardage. It's crazy. They're running the ball, and they're moving the ball, and then their defense is good. And then no one wants to go play in Denver. I think that's the other part too. Like they're at home. Like no one wants to go there and play that style of football. So we'll see. I think 10's probably a little too high, but you got to respect what they've done, and we'll see if they can hold on to this wild card down the stretch. They have some tough games as well. With Chargers, Chiefs. So we'll see. I think they play Cincinnati as well. So Denver at 10. I have the Chargers at 9. I touched on them a little bit. But I don't know. Are they fool's gold? Like, you saw them against Baltimore. Are they the team that takes care of business against bad teams or mediocre teams? And then when they play a really good team, a really good offense, that defense, can't do enough. That's kind of what I worry about with the Chargers is when they face a top tier offense, they don't really have the horses to match up against them. They're obviously, I like what they're doing as far as maximizing their offense, but I just worry they don't have enough like top end talent to go toe to toe with some of the top teams. Obviously, like what Lad McConkey's doing is awesome. And then Disley, but like when you're relying on like Quentin Johnson, Palmer, Josh Palmer, and even Will Disley, who's traditionally been a blocking tight end, like when you need those to be your key pieces and like big matchups and big games, I just worry about that. Like those aren't really like go-to guys that you want to trust in big moments. And then now I worry about like the running game. Like J.K. Dobbins brought an element of explosion to their offense and to their run game, and now he's out. So what does Gus Edwards do? I liked Kamani Vidal coming out. So we'll see what he can do, how much they trust him. But I don't know about this Chargers team. Like I do kind of worry about them. Yeah, exactly. Spin like Quentin Johnson. Like he's had a drop problem. Like dude gets open, but yeah, for a big guy, he's not really like a contested catch guy. His hands aren't great, and so it's great if you can get open, but you got to catch the ball. And man, did he have? He had 4 targets against Baltimore and dropped all 4. Like that is back-breaking, like brutal. So I worry about the Chargers in these big spots, critical moments where like 1 or 2 plays can switch a whole game or make or break a game. I'm not sure they have the pieces to do that. And then health-wise on the defensive line, I worry too, right? Like Bosa is always banged up, and so do they have enough juice to close out games? I have Pittsburgh at 8. They're just a Tomlin, man, like solid team. I don't think anyone wants to go in Pittsburgh and play them. But again, like they're not a team that necessarily is like a world beater, a shootout type of team. Like I don't think anyone's super scared of that offense. They have a couple deep shots that they try to Pickens, and then the rest of it is just 3 yards in a cloud of dust with Najee Harris, and then you bring in Jalen Warren to switch up the pace a little bit. You throw him a screen or two, and then it's play action and maybe hit Freiermuth underneath on like a check down. Like I think I just nailed the whole Pittsburgh offense. Like, so I worry about them and game scripts, right? Like we'll see against Cincinnati. Like if Cincinnati gets out to an early lead, I don't think Pittsburgh can do anything. I think they're a very game script team, but hey, with Mike Tomlin, I'll never count them out. I don't doubt that they will win games. They win the games they shouldn't, essentially, right? That's traditionally who they are, and then they lose these games that are just so dumb that they should have no business losing, like that Cleveland game. So how do you go from that beating Baltimore and then losing to Cleveland? It's just tough to see. And so I worry about them. Their schedule is brutal. Their schedule is so tough down the stretch. So they could be a solid team, but their record just won't reflect it because they have a really, really tough stretch coming up here. I think they have like Kansas City, Philly. They play Baltimore again. They play Cincinnati. They got Cleveland again, who already beat them. It's just a really tough stretch for them. So I have Pittsburgh at 8. I have Baltimore at 7. Um, I think Baltimore's better than 7, but I gotta wait to move them up more. Like I need to see more from them. Um, I worry about that secondary, um, and we'll see what they can do. I think they're a game script team as well. Like if things are going the right way for them, right? Like against the Bills, like where they get the ball first, right, or a turnover early, or a 3-and-out early, and they get the ball and they get the chance to get a score first, and get an early lead, even get up 2 scores early. I think then good. I mean, the game's over at that point. You're not getting it back from them. But then again, they do the Ravens thing, and in the fourth quarter, they'll blow a 2-score point, or 10+ point lead in the fourth quarter, and it's over. So like they blow leads like nobody. It's crazy to me. I want to say like, yeah, once they get up, the game's over, but then they do these crazy things and they blow these leads late. So stop the run and Baltimore's dead in the water. Yeah, I think so, but I also think part of it is just like, are you super worried about a close game at the end against Baltimore? Like I want to see Lamar have to make all the throws to win a game at the end of a game and against a good team. And I just haven't seen him do that like consistently. And, Kansas City to start the year is a good example of that. Like played well, but like at the critical moments, missed a couple throws that should have won his team the game. And those are the difference. We've seen Josh do the same thing where he missed, a throw or two that should have won the game. And so I think that's what separates Baltimore for me, and the ability for them to go far is, can they rely on that passing game? And it's not necessarily so much on Lamar, it's the weapons. Like, do I trust his weapons to make the plays? Like, am I like, where's Deontay Johnson? They traded for him, and then where's he been? Like, I don't know. Like, Bateman their most reliable guy? I mean, all the advanced metrics show he's always open. Whenever I watch Baltimore games, Bateman's always open, but they don't throw him the ball that much. Zay Flowers is fun, but like, he's not really like a 50-50, like big time, if I gotta have it guy, like I'm throwing it up to him. So I worry about that. And then like, is Mark Andrews still the Mark Andrews, the dominant Mark Andrews? Because I haven't seen it this year. And I don't know if it's injuries, if it's the car accident stuff. Is he just getting older? I'm not sure, but they need that, man. They need something. They need a guy who can take over a game in the passing game. You just can't only have that in the run game. And they're just too one-dimensional for me. And so that's where I worry about Baltimore. In a tough game, who do they go to? On a 3rd and long, who are they going to that can get them out of it besides Lamar running around and making a miracle? That stuff happens sometimes, but you can't rely on it. So that's my holdup with Baltimore. I want to see them kind of show me some more of that, kind of figure out the passing game some more. Maybe they will with some more time with Deontay, and we'll see what happens. Because I do think Bateman, Deontay, and Zay are really hard to handle against man coverage. I mean, those are all man coverage beaters. But how are they in zone? Can they sit down in the right zone? Can they be in the same page as Lamar? Like that's kind of what I want to see from Baltimore before I move them up more. And then also the other thing with Baltimore too is like, I want to see consistency in their pass rush. Like, can their pass rush get home and the key plays, the key downs where I need them to? Like, Kyle Van Noy has been unbelievable this year, but can he keep it going? He's older. Like, is he going to wear down? Like, where else is the pass rush coming from? And I don't think they can really afford to blitz. I think Patrick Queen being out, or being out of there, and then Roquan Smith being in, and then Roquan Smith being out of there. I think that's big for me. Is like Roquan Smith is the everything for that defense, and so he's got to be healthy and get back in there. So I don't know. Baltimore for me, I really like them. I think they're a solid team, but I'm just worried that they're not quite there yet. So I have them at 7. 6, I have Minnesota. I don't know. Like, if I had Minnesota play Baltimore, like Baltimore, I have to favor Baltimore, I think, but I don't know. Like, that's such a weird matchup to me. Minnesota's really good at stopping the run. I think some of their blitz stuff and what Flores can do could be really interesting against Lamar and what he wants to do. And so the cat and mouse of that. And then I think Kevin O'Connell could script up enough stuff in the pass game that could challenge Baltimore. And so that's like a really interesting stylistic matchup for me. And so I was torn. You could flip either of those teams, and I wouldn't really argue with you, but I think that would be a really interesting matchup. And I really like what Kevin O'Connell and Flores are doing, um, with that team. They have no business being at 9-2. So Minnesota at 6. Green Bay at 5. I've been on Green Bay since the offseason. I really like their roster. Um, I really like their coach. I like LaFleur a lot. It's just Jordan Love for me, man. Like if he plays good football, doesn't get careless and turn the ball over, they are a really tough team to play. Um, and you kind of saw that too, right? Their home field advantage is real, and you saw that against Miami. And so that they can run the ball, they can win both lines of scrimmage, and they're tough, man. They got explosive players all over the field. And so when they want to get into a shootout, I think they can get into a shootout. And then when they want to get into a grinded out game, they can get into a grinded out game. But boy, can they make mistakes, and boy, can they turn the ball over. And so that's what I worry about with them. It's you got to be able to take care of the ball. I forgot what draft pick we have coming from the Vikings, but I love that talk about it. It has completely ended. Yeah, they were second. It was second round pick from Minnesota that we got. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to talk about it because they're winning so many games. Like it's not going to be a low pick from Minnesota unless they lose out from here on out. But I don't really see that. So it'll probably be a high 20s draft pick, but it's a second rounder. So yeah, Green Bay at 5. I think that home field advantage is real. I think they're a really good team, and we'll see, man. That division is brutal, right? I mean, you have Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, all really good teams, and then don't mess around with Chicago because I think they could beat you. And so we'll see how that shakes out. But man, that division's tough, and you're definitely going to see 3 of those teams make it. So yeah, I agree, Paul. I think Bean has done a really good job finding value, and I mean, I'd gladly take a top 60 pick in that trade. I wouldn't complain one bit. So I'm definitely happy with the way it's worked out. So that pick came from Houston from the Vikings in the Diggs trade. Let's see. So at number 4, I have Kansas City. For a long time I kept them at 1, even though they were messing around. But I gotta drop them down because I think these other teams ahead of them are just that good. That if they were playing head to head right now, I would pick all the 3 other teams to beat them. I think Kansas City is showing some cracks as far as on defense. That offensive lineman, both tackle spots are not good. I don't think it's going to get any better. We'll see. DJ Humphreys might come back and play. We'll see what he can do, but their tackles have not been good. They don't have dynamic weapons, outside of Worthy, and his connection with Mahomes down the field has not been good. Hopkins has been inconsistent. And we'll see. Pacheco coming back, I think, is big for them. I think he brings the attitude back to that run game that they need, and the explosion that they need as well. Hunt doesn't do that. Hunt just picks up a couple yards and falls down. So I think Pacheco's nice to have back. We'll see how he works back in from injury. But man, Kansas City, you can't keep messing around. I think they're gonna get caught. I think they're gonna lose 1 or 2 more games. But I gotta respect Andy Reid, Spags, and Mahomes. So I have them at 4. I have Buffalo at 3. I think they're getting healthy at the right time coming out of the bye. We'll see how they look tomorrow night. Traditionally, they've been really good out of the bye down the stretch runs these last couple of years. They've been pretty much unbeatable outside of 2 fluky losses. So we'll see how they look this year. But got to respect what they've done so far. Beating Kansas City, I think, was big at home. The way they beat them too, they kind of left it in no doubt at least. And so this is where they got to get hot and got to get going. Let's see if they can rip off. I'd like to say 5-1 would be, I'd be happy with. I think 4-2 would be worst case scenario. and then we'll see if they can run the table. Obviously, that Detroit game, December 15th in Detroit, is going to be a tough test. These next three are big for Buffalo. I think they're going to tell you everything you want to know about this team, how they come out of these three health-wise and their record. Don't mess around with San Francisco at home tomorrow night. Then you got the Rams on the road, and then you have Detroit on the road. So big 3-game test for Buffalo, but I have them at 3, getting healthy at the right time. I have Philly at 2. I've really liked Philly. I've been on Philly for a while. I've had them ahead of most people in power rankings for a while. That team's scary, man. When the offensive line gets going, they can run the ball, and then when AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are healthy, that offense is a load. And then their defense, since they moved around some pieces in the secondary, that secondary has been really, really good. Now they're getting banged up, so I worry about that. Their D line's a little banged up now. They're not super deep there, and I think losing Graham's pretty big. So we'll see. But I've really liked Philly, and I think they're a lot to handle. Number 1 obviously is Detroit. I think you got to put Detroit at number 1. The thing you worry about with Detroit, though, is these injuries, man. Like, as banged up as San Francisco is, Detroit's right there with you guys. I mean, they're unbelievable, the injuries they've had. It's to their defense. I mean, I looked at their front 7 to start the year. So in training camp, it was what? It was 6, 5. I think it was like 17 players deep. There's only 3 players left. They've all been injured or hurt right now. Like, it's unbelievable. And you lose a guy, like Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, that's a Bosa, right, for San Francisco. I mean, maybe even better. I hate to say it, but he's been playing like the best defensive end in football. And so you lose a guy like that for the year. I mean, it's crushing, and they've still pressed on and looked good, but they lose their middle linebacker, and then they lose their backup linebacker now, or their backup middle linebacker, and so now they're down to essentially one linebacker that was there to start the year. It's crazy to me. So I worry about Detroit. This is kind of what happens to these teams that get really hot early and are peaking, and then the attrition wears on them, and then the injuries start piling up at the wrong time. And that's the NFL season, right? It's a war of attrition, and it's not so much who the best team is on paper or who the best team was going into the year. It's usually the healthiest team going into the playoffs, and I think part of that is why the late bye is so important, and then getting the 1 seed now, getting the only team to be able to take a bye, and then also week 18, if you can be resting on week 18 and not have to play there, I think that's huge as well. So for me, a lot of these rankings are more about the state of the roster right now and the health of these teams, and you see a common theme, at least in 3 of the top 4 teams, is how healthy is their roster, and Detroit's the one outlier there. So I worry about Detroit. We'll see how they march on. Their offense, though, has been healthy. They've had a couple injuries on the offensive line, but overall they've come back, and they haven't lost them for the year. So I think that's big. If they can keep that offense going, I think that's the key for them. It puts so much pressure on the other team when you have to try to keep up with Detroit's offense. And what Ben Johnson's doing to keep them so multiple, I think gives them a big advantage. So for me, Detroit is still the class at number 1, and we'll see if they hang on to that spot. I want to thank Rob, my guest, again. Really appreciate him coming on and providing the 49ers perspective, Rob Guerrera. It was really awesome having him on. You can find him at Stats on Fire on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram. So thank you again. Next up, we have the Sunday morning edition of No One to Blame. If you're into sports handicapping, specifically football for the Sunday morning one, it's myself, Jesse, and Kevin. We're on every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time, and we go down the NFL slate and give you our favorite props. We give you our favorite picks for game lines, so we'll give you some parlays, some best bets, some teasers. We do FanDuel daily fantasy lineups as well, and then we do fantasy football too. So come in, ask us your start sit questions, ask us injury stuff, who you would start, maybe waiver wire pickup if you found out someone's out and you're scrambling to try to pick someone up. Pop in the chat, ask us any of those questions. We'll answer them live for you. So that's No One to Blame at 10 a.m. Eastern time. It'll be streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and on X. You can find that at Do Champions. Come check us out. And then also immediately after the Bills 49ers game, we'll be doing a post-game show live at the Do Champions social media channels. So at Do Champions, come hop in for the post-game show. We love having the opposing team come in too. So 49ers fans, feel free to come in. A lot of times we'll do a call-in show too, so you can call in with any of your questions or thoughts. And then the comments are always open too, so you can post your comments live, and we'll answer those live or respond back. So come hang out with us after the game. It's going to be a late one for us East Coasters, but we'll be there giving you our reaction. I want to thank our show sponsor again, Happy Holiday and Mackenzie Tree Farms, for supporting us. Please remember this holiday season to buy a real Christmas tree grown here in the USA. Thank you all for tuning in. Please make sure you like and subscribe. That really helps us with the algorithms. And then please follow me on social at JakeFBData. I'll give you my Bills perspectives, and then I also do a lot of NFL stuff for player props and just interesting data and stuff like that, EPA and trends I'm seeing in the NFL. So please follow me on socials. And then join me next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, for the next episode of the Buffalo Blueprint. I'll be joined by an LA Rams guest. We'll break down the Week 14 road game against the Los Angeles Rams. So yeah, please join me then. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Man, hopefully we will be saying go Bills, right? So